Hey, YouTube, what's up? We're back with another gas mask and hand grenades. Tonight, we're going to talk about Canadian tech, prog, thrash, you name it, man. Death metal legends, Gorguts. And tonight, we have on the program an esteemed panel of guests, not including Devon. We've got Jimmy from Future Ruins. Jimmy, I did a tally on all my guests over the last year. Guess who's the number one guest?
Well, in terms of appearances, I'm sure that means.
Yeah, in terms of appearances, yes.
Yeah, no, that's been good. Yeah, no, I mean, we've had a lot of good, bands that we've wanted to do that we kind of were just like an agreeable on. So it's been kind of fun to really just kind of hammer through these. So I appreciate
man.
The invite again. Man.
Yeah, I know you've got a lot coming up here, so you'll probably disappear for a little while on the show. But it's been so far the run's been really, really fruitful and really awesome. So
absolutely.
We have a couple people watching, which is cool. Sorry we're getting started so late, but we got Jimmy out on the mountain time, and we got Devon out on the West Coast, and it just worked out this way that we had to get started a little late tonight, and I had some equipment issues earlier. We also have Devon from Maze of Torment, and I don't know, Devon, was this your idea or mine or both of us? I can't remember.
It was yours.
Was it mine? Okay. I got a lot coming up. Not a Rick Dreadful thumbnail tonight. This is a Devon Maze of Torment special, but you gotta admit, it was a pretty cool idea.
It was a nice departure from the norm. It was kind of like sort of fitting in a way, just like I don't know, just talking about some weird death metal, just a weird kind of.
I was going to say all the angular dissonance of Gorguts, and we put together kind of a haphazard, but actually it looks pretty good, Devon. I got to admit, and especially yours where you're going.
Yeah, good picture of Dev. Yeah,
like you're some kind of mongoloid or something like that. But anyway, hey Phil, what's up? Kevin, what's happening? Good to see you guys. So we're gonna let's give a good show. Phil, fuck the Eagles. I hate the Eagles. Jake, if you're watching, fuck the Eagles, man. Titans all the way. So anyways, we're gonna get into Gorguts here, and then real quick though, I want to run through a couple of quick announcements because if I forget at the end. I'm going to be removing the Agalok stream probably tonight or maybe tomorrow because I did a little bit of an edit job on it. Actually, Serge did. I want to thank Serge.
We got it done.
Yeah, we got it taken care of. Yeah. We could do it in StreamYard. Serge did it and then resaved it. I just have to upload it to YouTube, which I think I'm going to premiere it. I think that's what I'm going to do as a new premiere. And then I'll wipe the other one out. And the reason we did that was because we just felt there was a couple things in there that weren't really accurate, and we wanted to pull those out. And we actually are kind of hopeful. I'm going to probably send the stream to John and Don in case they want to check it out. And so
remind me about that when we get done tonight, because I want to ask you a couple things offline.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, real quick announcements. I think this is the last one for this week, but this week meaning the weekday week, because I need a little bit of a break and I need to catch up on some of the ones I got coming up. But what we think we've got coming up, and this is all tentative, but you'll see things scheduled relatively soon. We have, there Devon's showing right there. We're likely doing Emperor's Catalog on Sunday. Myself, Devon, and Tyler from Tyler did the Battery stream with us.
And Justin too, I thought, right?
Justin's not going to be able to make that one. No, he doesn't really know the catalog that well, he said, so, which is sort of surprising for Justin. You'd think he'd really know that catalog. So we're going to try and get Emperor in probably Sunday afternoon, like in the 7 o'clock range Eastern time. Tentatively scheduled for Saturday is Dennis from Analog Archives and I are going to do the catalog of Triumph, the Canadian power trio. Fucking love that band. They're another awesome Canadian band, and I've been wanting to do that one. And Dennis and I are going to tackle that. Dennis and I are also trying to figure out how, when, and where we're going to schedule Aldo Nova and Zebra. We're going to do like a Back to the 80s special where we do both those bands, because both those bands rather, had insane debut albums that sold crazy big numbers and then kind of petered off. But they have good albums nonetheless, so we're going to tackle that. What else? Oh, big one that kind of announced tentatively, very tentatively, assuming I'm still here. We're going to try and do the catalog of The Cure on the Saturday the 26th, and we're hoping we have two very special guests that have never been on before that are good friends of Surge's. One of them is a friend of mine too, and we'll hold off on announcing that until I know for sure. But tentatively, the 26th, we're going to hit The Cure. I think that's it, unless I do some solo ones, which I don't really like the idea of doing solo streams because it's just me talking, and that doesn't really serve any purpose. And I do a lot of that anyways. So Jimmy and I sporting our colors. I got an Obscura shirt on, and Jimmy has colored sands on. What are you wearing, Dork? Ah, of course. That's all right. We'll let you pass on that. That's the king. So let's talk about Gorguts, guys. You ready to get into it?
Yep.
Formed in Sherbrooke, Quebec in 1989, and then they relocated to Montreal. The original band consisted of Luc Lemay on guitar and vocals, Sylvain. There's a lot of French-Canadian names here. Eric Ganger on bass, Stéphane Provencher on drums, and Sylvain Moncroy on guitars. Their first demo was called, well, actually, they have a demo number 1 in 1989 that had 2 tracks on it, Hematological Allergy and good Lord, I can't even fucking read my writing there. Calamitous Mortification. I did not have time to listen to the demos. I usually do with this band, but I just did not have time this time. Also, then they put out a second, more official demo in June of 1990 called And Then Comes Lividity, which had the songs And Then Comes Lividity, Hematological Allergy, Inflicted Maturity. Strange names for these songs. Metasuchosis. I don't even know how to say that. And then Calamitous Mortification. They were signed to Roadrunner in 1990. They issued their first album, Considered Dead, in 1991, on October 8th, 1991. And that album features Chris Barnes on backing vocals. Sure, if you want to believe that he did backing vocals, right, if you call what he does vocals. And also, James Murphy played a guitar solo on one song. They toured with Cannibal Corpse and Atheist, on the Blood, Guts, and Gore tour that year. That would have been a fun one to see. How about it, guys? So I did not get into the and there's a lot of lineup changes, which we'll go over each album as we go through them. Otherwise, it would get too confusing. So we'll do it album by album. So anything you guys want to add on the history there? Because there wasn't a whole lot, and I'm not, spending a lot of time on that. Jimmy, got anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it. I don't really know too much of the real deep history of the band outside of, the first full length. So,
right.
Aside from those demos, I will add that they did like a number of reissues of all the demo stuff, like on vinyl. I think there's like a box set, and like there's still stuff available you can get for it. I never picked it up because I'm just not really a big demo guy myself. But
neither am I.
Yeah, they do. Unless you're truly a completist, but they do have all that stuff available, and they also did. I think it was like an unofficial live album in 1993. Which would have been, Erosion of Sanity era.
Right.
And the interesting thing about that release is if you go and look at it, it has the eventual lineup of Obscura coming later. And you can actually go and listen to that live record. I think it's on YouTube, but it's pretty easy to find. Right. And it's mostly Erosion of Sanity songs with a couple of Considered Dead songs. But aside from that, I'm not aware of any other releases. The beginnings of the band are kind of, I don't have too much like historical knowledge of, anything beyond that.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. What I know about it, I pulled pretty much from exactly, from Metal Archives and from which there wasn't much there, and then from Wikipedia. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of interviews out there with Luke because he was pretty prolific at doing them around from 13 to 16, but I just did not have time with everything that was going on. I was not able to, and I don't know that he gets into a lot of history on these more current interviews and things like that. So if there's anything I'm missing out there, it is what it is,
Well, there's definitely some questions I have about the lineup too that I've never really seen too much of. We'll get into that when we get into the albums.
Say on Discogs, there's an LP compilation that has the Here Comes Divinity, pre-production of Considered Dead, pre-pro of Erosion, pre-pro of Obscura, 95 live, then 93 live.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Jimmy, about the 93 live album, that being that it has, what happened is once that they were dropped by Roadrunner after the second album, that pretty much everybody in the band but Luke bolted. They just kind of disappeared for the most part. And really Luke kind of there's a lot of periods during this band where they're kind of quote unquote on hiatus. And the band was kind of put to rest because Luke is a woodworker, a really good, accomplished woodworker, in fact, and he builds furniture and stuff like that. He's also a graduate from the, I guess it's the Montreal Polytechnic Music Institute, I believe it's called. And he has a fucking degree in music composition. He's a super fucking bright dude, just really, really, really bright, and really understands composition, classical composition, which we'll talk about when we get into these albums a little bit more. But that particular lineup then was the lineup that he started to pick back up with Steve Hurdle, and I believe it's McDonald. Was that the drummer? No, McDonald was on Wisdom to Hate.
Well, McDonald was with him for a while, then he left, then he came back from Wisdom to Hate. They had Patrick Roberts on Obscura.
Well, Patrick Roberts was Obscura, right? But I don't think he kind of came in when they were ready to do the recording. So I think it was the other guy, Clothier.
Yeah, I'll look at before that. Yeah, it was touring with them.
Right. So Montreal Conservatory. I think you're right. Yeah, it's in French, and I can't speak French. So
yeah, it says in '94 they did a self-release demo again after Erosion.
Right on. Rocking the threads too, yeah, man. So I've got my Gorguts shirt on. So let's jump into this here, man. Let's talk about Considered Dead. Their first album came out October 8th, 1991. Who's got that one to show it? Oh, shit. I got rid of Devon. Oops.
Whoops.
I hit the wrong button.
We're not going to talk about how we got into the band first.
Oh, yeah. God, why am I doing that? The last two streams, I forgot about that. Yeah. Let's get into that first. Devon, go ahead. Since you're the youngest guy here, talk about how you...
So it's kind of not an interesting story. So first I got into bands like, I think it was Suffocation, DSI, Malevolent Creation. What do they all have in common besides being death metal? And Gorguts.
What they all have in common?
Mm-hmm.
Dan Seagrave cover art, Scott Burns Productions.
They were all on the same record label. They were all on Roadrunner. That's what made me check out Gorguts, because I realized those first three bands were on Roadrunner. So I said, what else is good on Roadrunner? So I saw Gorguts. I liked the name, so.
Okay. But you had no idea what they sounded like? Did you check them out online or what?
Yeah, I checked them out online. I saw the album cover for Considered Dead, so I figured it had to be good, and I was right. So,
what was the first album you got then?
First one I heard was Considered, but I bought Erosion first.
You went to mute, but yeah, for me, wow. My history goes pretty far back with the band. Probably when I was in 9th grade in the early 90s, and checking out and getting into death metal and, sort of the big, death metal explosion of the early 90s, checking out a lot of what Devon said. I mean, obviously, they were all Roadrunner bands. Like, I don't remember exactly the first time that I heard of Gorguts. I just think they kind of went in tandem with all the other bands that I was checking out, like Deicide and all the classics. The Morbid Angels, the Suffocations, the Cannibals, the all the bands that were coming out on the Roadrunner label, and Gorguts was one of them. And they were just one of those bands. I think I just blind bought their cassettes, which I'm going to show here pretty soon. But I didn't even remember. I don't even remember if it was considered Dead or the Erosion of Sanity that I first heard. But the Erosion of Sanity for me was like, we'll get into that. But I go pretty far back with the band.
You do. Yeah, you do go back far then. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. So for me, when I'm a little late to the death metal thing. I didn't come to it until probably 2001 with Opeth and Blackwater Park. But I would say somewhere around 2003, a buddy of mine, that we were trading stuff, and there was a lot of the BitTorrent stuff going on back there where you download stuff. And you remember those days, Jimmy, where you download something, it would take all night to download the CDs worth of shit. One guy I knew is like, dude, you got to check this band out, because I was into Ulver and Arcturus and, getting into some of the, early black metal stuff like that. And he's like, you got to check this band out, man. They're just fucking bonkers. So he sent me a CDR of Obscura. And I remember putting that in and going, what the fuck, man? Like,
not the best first album.
No, not really. No. But it was just one of those things where, it was a time and place thing, because whether you know it or not, Devon, my opinion on Obscura is not like yours. It's going to be very different, actually. I didn't let on. I didn't want to tell you. So, but long story short, sometime in 2013, I decided to jump back into them, and I kind of more or less blind bought Colored Sands and was fucking mind blown, just like completely mind blown. So I knew about them as far back as 2003, maybe 2004, but I really didn't follow them much. And quite frankly, there wasn't much to follow after Obscura, because the band, there was Wisdom to Hate, but then after that, they kind of went dark, So, that was my kind of my entry level into the band. And thank you, Devon, for reminding me to do that. I did that kind of last night with Surge. I kind of jumped ahead too. I forgot. So I think my brain's working on all the other things that are going on, and I forgot. But who wants to show? Well, you have Considered Dead in cassette, you said?
Yeah, this is the original.
Ooh, look at that. Sweet.
You can see the RC. Imprints. This is actually a night. I actually spun this today to listen to the record, and man, it still sounds great. It's because I took care of it, but to kind of give this a little bit of
nice
authenticity. There's the Blue Grape. Which
the merchandising company, right?
Yeah, you could mail order like
I remember it.
T-shirts.
Yep.
You can see all the artists that were there in those
days.
I
so remember that. That's fucking killer, man.
Yeah, but I kept it. It's a little bent, but I took care of these cassettes, man, and because I knew that they would kind of be sort of a time capsule, and this I've got a few that are just completely fucked, but this one is definitely in good shape. I've got it on CD as well, but I probably bought this at Camelot Music in the mall, in 10th grade or something like that.
Right. That's so killer, dude. And those shells, when they went to like the clear shells away from the really cheap plastic looking ones, they always look so much cooler. For some reason it was like, oh, these are so cool. Does that one have like Dolby DHX or whatever they call it back then?
It might have, because some of these cassettes over the years, It
probably would say it if it has it on it, but
I don't think this one actually said. Well, yeah, I'd have to go and look through it, but like I said, I spun it today and it sounded really, really good. I mean,
awesome.
No problems with the cassette at all.
Well, since it sounded good, why don't you talk about it? Let me just give some facts on it real quick. But Came out on October 8th, 1991. As we said, Roadrunner. Colin Richardson mixed this album, and you should know that name if you know death metal because he did a lot of mixing back then. It was recorded at Morning Sound, or no, Morris Sound, and Scott Burns was the producer. And you can definitely hear it's Scott Burns, man. It has that Florida death metal sound, which is killer. Let's see. Do I have a Dan Seagrave? You mentioned Dan Seagrave art, and I love that art, that cover, man. I think it's fucking killer. So cool. Any other notes? I'll do the rest when I get to my part there. What's that say?
It also had some of these early releases. You can't see it, but it's like drugs are not fun, drugs are not happiness kind of thing. A lot of the art releases had this. That's interesting. I wonder because this says it was produced, engineered, and mixed by Scott Burns. So if Colin Richardson was a part of this.
No, my bad. Colin Richards is on the next one.
Okay.
My bad.
Okay. Yeah,
I made that note and I put an arrow and I didn't put the arrow to the next page. He does the next one. I tell you, the mix on this album, production is killer. There's only one problem with this album. We'll get into it when I talk about. But real quick, King Igor, what's up? Evan, what's happening? I think I saw Logan. You're in here too. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for jumping in, man. So go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said about the production, man, this is like one of the best produced like Scott Burns records.
Totally agree.
And he's done a lot of great productions, but man, This one, just listening to it today, I was like just blown away by how good it sounds. The
guitars are ferocious on this album.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the drumming sounds great. I mean, you can hear the bass very clearly. That's one thing Scott Burns really did well is you could hear the individual instruments, in such a way that nothing was overpowering other things. And, you could probably argue that on certain, he did a lot of records, but it's one thing that always stands out to me with Scott Burns stuff is that you could really hear everybody's individual performances. Interesting, this record has, it has the early template for all the bands. Dan Seagrave cover, Scott Burns production in Tampa. 1992, is that was it 91?
91.
Yeah, 91.
It was recorded in 90 though.
Yeah, and for a debut album, it's pretty solid. It's got some solid tracks. I mean, it really, I wouldn't say that it stands really out there compared to like some of the other things that were coming out at the time. Like It felt like it was more just another great like Tampa, Florida death metal band. Definitely some standout tracks like the opening track "Stiff and Cold" after the intro is great.
Oh yeah,
Raw Anatomy, the title track. I really like the instrumental "Waste of Mortality," and then "Inoculated Life." That's probably my favorite song on here. That's the one that has the James Murphy solo, great ripping James Murphy solo on it.
Yep.
A lot of guests on here, like you said, Chris Barnes But I mean, the rest of the record kind of just feels like it blends together a bit. Like all the songs, the riffs.
It's a little bit. I have two complaints about it. One is it's a bit samey throughout.
Yeah, but I mean, for a debut record, it's still damn solid and a fun listen.
Oh yeah.
At the same time, it just it feels like they're just kind of figuring out what their sound is going to be because they're at this point like they're. Death metal was a pretty new thing. All the explosion came out pretty early on for all those albums that were coming out. So I guess they were sort of can do all the stuff, can play, but trying to find an identity with all the bands that were coming out and recording at More Sound could not have been an easy thing. And I think as we start to talk further, that changes quickly. But for a debut record, it's a really good first effort. A lot of fun listen. I wouldn't really hold it in higher regard than some of those other early ones, like the first Deicide or whatever. But it's clear that I feel like maybe Roadrunner was really just like trying to sign as many bands as they could of this type. Otherwise, this record might have gone unnoticed. Not kind of
Devon. Mute yourself, Devon, please. He's banging around in the background.
Like you see a lot of other early 90s death metal albums that did kind of like go unnoticed that are kind of coming out today. Like bands like Gutted or Morgue, or some of those ones that like, were more known in the underground, but like have found a new audience today with a lot of, with this whole resurgence of like new wave, old school death metal or whatever you want to call it. Maybe this would have like really gotten a big resurgence because of that. But I think it's still just considered a great debut because I mean, Gorguts is a band that is highly revered in the genre, over the years. So, but yeah, man, it's a great first effort. I like it a lot. I don't really go back to it very often. I listened to it twice for this deep dive and found myself enjoying it immensely. It's just, again, it's not quite developed to where they would go from here. So
absolutely, yeah. The sound on it is really, really fantastic. I think the production is amazing for that era. It's as you said, it's Scott Burns, maybe one of his better productions, to be honest with you. But I'll get to my review of it then in a minute. But Devon, your mic is really hot, so you got to be real careful when you're moving around the background. If you're not going to mute yourself, so go ahead. You got the album, cool.
Yeah, so
is that a listenable pressing?
Yeah, 2016.
Okay. Yeah.
So I agree this is a good debut. I also agree it's kind of like you could easily get lost in the shuffle because it's basically then just paying homage to the more Floridian stuff. They didn't really, I don't think they found their sound until the next record, but I agree, even though I like it, once you get to side B, a lot of the songs kind of sound to blend together and kind of all sound the same. But though I agree about the production though, but I think that's the best cover art though. That is awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a killer cover. There's no doubt about that.
How does the vinyl
sweet.
sound, Devon? Is it
sounds good? Yeah.
Now what you said a 2016 pressing?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Listenable went ahead and repressed both that and the Erosion of Sanity.
Yeah.
Like recently or what?
Well, yeah, they've been repressing them
a
few times because they got a bunch of rights to a bunch of those Roadrunner records because they did Obituary, they did Suffocation, they did a bunch of early Roadrunners. I don't know how they got the rights to those because I can't imagine they were cheap.
I was just going to say, not cheap at all. Roadrunner is not good at doing that, being very charitable like that. That's wild. Yeah, that's sweet. I love that cover. I don't know if it's I like all their covers. I even like the Obscura cover. It's a weird one, but I like it. But yeah, I really like Colored Sands a lot too, man. Colored Sand is really cool. But yeah, that's their most death metal looking cover.
Well, it's also kind of different for Dan Seagrave because a lot of his stuff tends to be like there's a lot going on. And it's not a lot, but that one is just kind of
less busy,
more focused.
Kind of minimalist. Yeah. But I think the coolest thing is the color scheme. The color scheme is wicked.
Yeah.
And it's very simple, just mainly purple.
Well, but the green really, really goes with the purple, and then you got the white. Yeah, and then the pinkish sort of hues with the purple, and then you got the white creature or whatever the hell he is there coming in there. I love that. I love that art cover. I'd love to have a shirt of that for sure.
Yeah, I know.
What about individual songs? Anything jump out at you there, Devon?
Let me see what I wrote down. Probably the title track. Because there's that one riff, I think it's like halfway through where it like slows down. It's kind of like the like the kind of more like a mid-pace, super like moshy part. That's awesome. So yeah, but good record. This kind of, not to say aged badly, but re-listening to it, I realized after the first few songs it kind of blends together. So good record, but definitely not their best.
Cool.
Also, one thing I'll say about the cover art is that I've seen like speculation like what's going on here, but if you read the lyrics to the title track "Considered Dead," I can almost like it talks about how we didn't anatomically understand or something that when they stopped breathing they were considered dead or something like that. So I kind of looked at like the monster was like some kind of like cyborg that was like harvesting humans or seeing that they trying to understand the death process for a sentient being or whatever.
Oh wow.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, Luke's a pretty cerebral guy, so I could kind of see that. But I don't, I hate to admit this, man, but I don't really read a lot of death metal lyrics because it just
I don't
seems
either.
it seems kind of pointless. But in this case, probably we'll get to like later albums with Luke. The lyrics probably are a lot more important in this band than a lot of other bands. So, okay, so for me, I got this one 2016, somewhere in that range. And the first thing that jumped out at me was just those crushing guitars, man. I mean, the guitar sound on this album is one of the best guitar sound I think I've ever heard in death metal. It just the riffs are pummeling, they're fat and thick. I don't know what he was using in the studio, what amps they were using. It sounds a lot like Mesas for some reason. I hear like a Mesa crunch in there. But they could have been using rack mounted shit. I have no idea. I'd have to ask Luke something like that. But stiff and cold riffs for days. Luke's vocals are super guttural, but you can hear all the words that he's saying. That's what I really like about this. You can actually make out what he's saying. And real quick, what's up, Mike? How's it going? And Rick, good to see you, buddy. Was worried about my boy Rick, man. I didn't hear from him for a couple days. It freaked me out a little bit. I'll tell you, probably here are my 4 tracks. Inoculated Life, that solo by James Murphy's fucking just so killer. And here's my notes on that. Chug. Chug Mania. And what else I have? I mentioned the solo. Also, I really like Hematological Allergy. This one has some cool intro stuff going on. The bass is very basic on it, though, but there's some cool intro chordal riffing, and then it kind of sounds similar to a lot of the other songs. Waste of Mortality, the instrumental. Very, very cool one. That one, you can actually make out the bass. I disagree with Jimmy. I had a tough time making the bass out on this one. Maybe it was just very basic, and that's why, no pun intended. But the bass playing on this album is not very. It doesn't grab you. It follows a lot of the guitar lines. It doesn't do anything to stand out.
Well, there's one song that opens up with a bass riff, though.
That's the one and only one, and it's a very basic bass riff. Yeah. That's the one. Waste of Life. Oh, there is bass on this album, I say. Even if pretty basic. But the riffy part on that song is really, really killer, man. That's a really good one. The other one that I like, what's it called? Bodily Corrupted? Is that what it's called? I can't read my writing. Something Corrupted? Begins with a B. Somebody help me out.
It's Bodily Corrupted.
Bodily Corrupted. Okay. There's some killer guitar passages in that song, but my favorite song on the album is Disincarnated, man. That is super chuggy in the verse, really, really killer. The slow section where it kind of slows way down, it just sounds fucking amazingly vicious, and Luke's vocals on that are killer. Stiff and Cold, like I said, starts out with riff for days. But again, my 2 criticisms of the album. I don't know about you guys, but I think the drumming on this album is not very good. There are times where the tempos don't seem to. He's not a very good blast beat guy, for starters. Secondly, the snare sounds very flat on some of these songs. It just has a weird, flat, almost cardboardy sort of sound, and I just don't think the drummer on this album doesn't even remotely belong in the same solar system as a couple of the drummers that we're going to talk about coming up. I mean, there's some guys coming up that are just mind fucking blowing. Not that this guy sucks. He's just very basic. The fills are kind of basic. The blast beats are kind of basic. There's just nothing about his playing that excites me at all.
So you said James Murphy played on this record, right?
Yeah, on track 10.
There's a song called Disincarnated, so maybe that's where he got the band name Disincarnate.
I might have. Possibly. That's good. When did Disincarnate come out, though?
That was 93, the album.
Yeah. Maybe he did take that from Luke. You never know. That might be true. A couple quick notes on here. Again, all of my stuff on Rotten Hatumi or whatever it's called. The drums on that, man, just seem super fucking sloppy. I don't know what it is, but to my ears, that's what it
I'll have
sounded
to go
like.
back and listen. I don't remember them sounding too bad. They were kind of rudimentary, but not.
They're very rudimentary. And listen to Rottenopathy and tell me that he doesn't fall out of time bad on that song.
Falls out of time.
We also didn't mention one thing, man. That intro and then comes Lividity. Oh my god, that is so cool, man. It's like I'm a guitarist, and something like that like gets my nipples hard. I'm like, whoa, that is badass sounding, man. I wish it would have went on for another 30 seconds or a minute or so. It was just so cool. That's what else do I have here? Intro, very cool for a brutal death metal album. You didn't hear a lot of that kind of an intro before. The songs are a bit samey, but the riffs are killer. One thing you can hear is the seeds of tech in some of the guitar. You can definitely hear where they're gonna start to go with the next album. Some of the guitar playing on here is really, really approaching top notch. Production's great. Again, my complaints are basically that the flat snare sounds a little I don't hear the bass. Maybe I need to re-listen to it, but I just don't hear a lot of good bass on there. It's very basic. And what else do I have here?
Well, this has a bass thing you can change, so it doesn't bother me, so I can turn up the bass.
Okay, well maybe that's what it is. Again, it just sound the drums for some reason on this kind of sound flat. That's my only real negative about it. And you know, for me, this is probably like a 7.5 out of 10, simply because I'm deducting a little bit for the fact that in the middle of the record, you got a lot of songs that I would not be able to separate out and go, oh, that's this one, or oh, that's that one, because they have a lot of sameness to them. The other thing to mention on here is Luke's vocals are fucking amazing. They're just ferocious. You can understand him. They're vicious. They kind of remind me a little bit. This one and the next album kind of remind me a little bit of Premier and Michael Ockerfeld for some reason. Just a little bit. The screamy part. So
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Anybody got some final parting shots on Considered Dead, or are we good to move on?
Yeah.
Good full length, but compared to what's next to come, I think they definitely improved a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
And what you said about his vocals, he was right off the bat like a great death metal vocalist. I always thought like he was one of my favorites and instantly recognizable Luke LeMay, you know.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorites. There's no doubt about it. I'm sorry, I'm having issues with my phone here. Yeah, he's absolutely, even to this day, the stuff that he's doing in 2016. Well, it's been a while, right? You know, it's been quite a while actually, but his vocals on Colored Sand are absolutely well, we're gonna get there. Anyways. Next up, Erosion of Sanity. There's Devon's copy there. And Jimmy, you said you had the cassette?
Yeah, we'll get to it though. I mean, that's a better pressing than I've got, Dev, because I'll show it when we get to it. But
okay,
it's listenable.
Devon, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I put. There's something to be said. Let me hang on. There's something to be said when an album sounds like the cover looks. The complex Dan Seagrave artwork, from its twisting forms and aggressive, edgy, pretty. Wait, fuck. Okay, never mind. What me say? Compared to the other bands of the era regarded as tech death like Death, Atheist, and Cynic, Gorguts sounded much closer to the brutal death style of suffocation and sinister, with many riffs moving towards the chromatic figures and even more little slam parts of Orphans of Sickness. Is that the one?
I don't know. Did you steal this from somebody else, or are these your thoughts?
No, this is what I wrote. Orphans of Sickness. That's right. So.
That's a killer track.
As in typical of the style, the bass work is quite prominent. It becomes more of the melodic core of some of the parts, such as during the pinch harmonic riffs and condemned to obscurity. The guitar work and chromatic parts both feel more heavy and much more musical as a result, with the extremely doomy sound, the slowest sections, and a much better established tone of dread and decay. The works wanders on tracks like the title track, which moves between mid-tempo melodies and spidering riffs in a much more organic and cohesive way than similar efforts from other bands. As with their debut, his vocals provide an excellent variety between tortured screams and rugged growls, which works very well on the album when compared with the gross guitar harmonies. glimpses of melody from the guitar and the bass fit into the sound here during the overall song structure as well. The drum parts also play a very huge role in the dynamic shifting around the album, from the capacity of stopping and starting fast double bass parts and blast beats on a dime.
Dude, you didn't fucking write this. Don't lie to me.
No, I did. Fuck you.
Come on. Get out of here.
Man, he's on a roll, man. Keep
All
going,
right,
dude.
finish
Good.
up.
This is good stuff.
Finish. Hang on. Finish up, Anthony Fantano.
You want to go ahead then? Go ahead.
Now, come on now. Don't get all upset.
Go ahead.
It sounds like you wrote a fucking review for each album like this. Come on, man. Go ahead. Finish up.
You told me to take notes, douchebags. Do you want me to continue?
True, I did. That's true.
Yeah,
I
dude,
did.
keep going, man. Read the up to it.
Go ahead. Finish up.
While the sound isn't very far off from more orthodox style of death metal, the uncommon rhythm, variation, and variety of chugging heavier blast is more organic and twisty. But let me see. Of Gorguts' first of their pure death metal era, which I only argue this and consider dead hour, this is definitely my favorite. It's definitely more mature songwriting. Although I like some of the material to come, I still wish they stuck with the style. This is a good mixture of the more aggressive side of them and a little bit leading into the more technicality side of them. So yeah.
All right. So what tracks are your favorite again? I didn't catch that.
The title track and Orphans of Sickness.
All right. Cool. All right, Jimmy, what you got? You got the cassette?
Yeah, so Devon, the pressing you have is nicer than mine, just simply because this was the first pressing they did on Listenable, and they completely washed out all the colors. Like,
look at that, man. It's really dark.
And so if you look at Devon's, you can see all the detail like down here. It's much better. I guess a lot of people complained about it, and then when they repressed it, which is the one he has, it looks much better. But it's also cutting off a bunch of the artwork.
That's super dark.
I don't know. Yeah, these listenable pressings I don't think are really that great. I mean, they sound good, but it's really pixelated if you get up and close to it. And
where are they out of? Listenable.
They're France.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I just, what was I gonna say? I mean, like, that's one of my favorite Dan Seagrave cover arts.
Oh, it's killer, man. You said you had the OG cassette.
Yeah, so if you look at the cassette, I mean, it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So much better looking.
Like,
and you've got like the detail of the little boxes there. But no, I think Devon put it really good, and I think he should continue to do that, man. I think on these deep dives, like, I started kind of like writing down my thoughts, and then I would like try to read it, and then like I'd kind of try to figure out what worked best, and I kind of just went back to just talk about it. But no, good job, man. I mean, like, I think you kind of captured, I mean, everything you pretty much said, I agree with. I remember buying, I kind of it's almost like a dream in a way when I bought this cassette, because I can't fully remember. All I remember is I was on a band trip, because I was a band geek in the in the marching band in high school, and we'd take a band trip every spring to go do like a performance, and we went to Disney World one year, and one of those nights they brought us to one of the malls. It wasn't Tampa, but it was in Florida. I mean, I guess it was obviously Orlando.
Oh wow!
And I went into, I don't know if it was a Camelot or something like that, but I'm pretty sure that's where I picked this cassette up. And that would have been 1990. I mean, this was what, 92?
93.
Okay, 93.
Came out January 19th of 93.
So I would have been a sophomore, I'd have been a sophomore. So I do remember like having the first record, and then this must have just been released. And I remember like looking through the cassettes and picking it up and being like, just completely in awe of the cover art. It was like, I got to get that. So, this was the one. I haven't actually spun this tape, but I'm sure it's still fine, just like the other one, because I kept these, in good places over the years and made sure that I took care of them. But
real quick on that, just to do the technicals, came out January 19th, 1993 on Roadrunner. It was recorded in Victor Studios, and Steve Harris produced, but I don't think it's the Steve Harris we're all familiar with. Also, Luke was involved in the production as well, and Colin Richardson did mix this one. So, and they were dropped by Roadrunner out pretty shortly after this, actually. Yeah. Oh man, that's cool as fuck.
Roadrunner dropped a lot of death metal bands because around that time new metal was becoming popular.
New metal and grunge,
like a year later.
Yep.
Yeah, Devon, you said this was your favorite. Is this your favorite Gorguts altogether? Or?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This was hang on one sec, Jimmy. Question there, Andre. No, it was Victor Studios in Montreal. Go ahead.
So that's okay. Wait, man, I don't even see the production notes. Oh man, they're on there, but they're really small.
Tiny.
It's kind of hard to see.
It's Victor Studios, I believe, in Montreal.
Yeah, Steve Harris recorded it. Yeah, definitely not.
Colin Richardson mixing. Yep.
Mixed it. Yep. Okay, that's right.
Go ahead, hit me with your thoughts.
This is my favorite Gorguts record, hands down.
Wow.
And I think maybe because like it's one of those things that like at the time I was such a huge fan of it when it came out.
Right.
After this they disappeared, but at the time, like getting into all the death metal I was getting into, like all the stuff and getting into atheist and cynic, there was clearly a huge progression in this record compared to Considered Dead. Maybe I like the production a little bit better on Considered Dead, but this one, it still sounds really good. But I mean, the songwriting on this is leaps and bounds from the debut. And obviously they took some influence. I mean, there's some Suffocation influence a bit. I mean, Luc Lemay has even said that, like, he hung out with those guys when he went down to Tampa and got some influence from them. And it's kind of a one of a kind release from this band because they went away from this after this. But everything from start to finish, every single song is memorable. It's like great. I love the names of the songs. I didn't really pay too much. I don't pay too much attention to lyrics either, but just something about all the song titles just jive. Right off the bat with Their Flesh He'll Create. I mean, that has some of the Suffocation isms in there with the breakdown, but it just clearly jumps off, has that big breakdown. It's just heavy as fuck, dude. Like just amazing Luc Lemay vocals. And getting into Condemned to Obscurity. And you were talking about like this is the last record of this drummer, Stefan Provencher, I guess his name is.
Yeah, that was his name. I couldn't think of his name.
And this guy, like, just I don't know where, I don't think he's done anything else. He disappeared after this, but where his drumming might have been pretty rudimentary on the first record, boy, he really
I agree.
Blew the roof. I mean, I still to this day, that intro to Condemned to Obscurity, comes in with the piano piece and then the drum beats where he's doing like the bell thing, and it's like this really slow dirge kind of double bass thing, and like it's one of those like sections of drumming, as a former drummer, like I still to this day I can't picture what the hell he's doing there. It's so effective. It's so like just forward thinking in the drum department that like the guy really, like, I don't know, he just leaps and bounds from what he did on the first record, and that continues through the song. And that's
completely agree with you.
Yeah, and Condemned to Obscurity, I mean, that's to me is like the hallmark track on Erosion of Sanity because it has that really dark and doomy kind of dirgy vibe to it. Really like showing that they're starting to develop that weird sense of melody and that weird dissonant kind of feel to it. But it just, the whole track, man, it just rips my face off every time. And it's just so good. The title track. Another thing to this record is it's like, it showcases like the weirdness that they're getting to, but there's a unmistakable groove.
Yes.
I mean, there's an amazing groove to the songs, like in a way that like Suffocation was kind of getting to, like in their early stuff. But it's so groovy and just so like I can look at every song and hear the riff in my head. Like it's so memorable and so just like Orphans of Sickness. Every single song, A Path Beyond Premonition. That one, like just the groove in that one, like the drumming. Again, the guy really, I mean, I think he's one of those unheralded drummers that nobody remembers anymore. And I say, like, this is one of my favorite drum performances in death metal, like in the early days. I think the guy just...
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but he leveled up hard because he really, I'm sorry, I just don't hear much on the first album that's inventive or very good.
Yeah.
And yet on this album, it's like almost, I had to look and double check they hadn't changed drummers because the performance was so vastly different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I will say this, though. I agree with you. I do not think the production is as good as it is on Consider Dead overall.
Not as good, but it's still, I mean,
it's a little mushy. It's a little sludgy.
I like the guitar tone better. That's it, though.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
It maybe was a little more like, I think they kind of consciously made the production a little bit more denser, like kind
That's
of more
a good word for it.
Like the path that they were following for the riffs and getting a little bit more dissonant and weird. But in tracks like Odors of Existence, which is such a great name. I love that.
That's so weird, right?
And that the acoustic intro to Dormant Misery is like so good. I'd put that on over and over again. I used to think that was like a standalone track, but it's just the intro to the last song. But largely formative for me growing up was this record, and I easily say this is a 10 out of 10. I wouldn't change a damn thing about it. Not only is it my favorite Gorguts record, it's probably one of my favorite death metal records of all time.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So, for me, one of my first things. Well, first we should note that after this album, the band goes into a 5-year absence. They just go into basically limbo. They do some touring. Oh no, they don't do any touring for this. Actually, this is when the band pretty much everyone quits and disappears, and Luke has to reform a band. Actually, they may have done a little touring on this. That I think I'm wrong on that front. Because he had to get a band together for that, and that's where the Obscura guys came in. With their flesh, he'll create way more bass. I can hear finally. Insane riffage on here. And what I said here was Luke ups his game on this album compositionally, and I say far more technical. It's far more technical than the first album. Mm-hmm. But it's not quite at the level of technicality that we're going to see on the next few albums. But it's moved up. If they were your standard death metal band, kinda, they've now moved into a different level. I mean, I don't know. When did Unquestionable Presence come out? 92?
Ooh, yeah, it would have been 92. Yeah,
I think it was 90. I think it was 92 because I think their debut came out in 91. I'm pretty sure it was 92. And at that point, man, the only other real technical death metal you had was maybe Death themselves, but they weren't. Death wasn't ever quite atheist. I mean, they just weren't. I mean, as complex as Chuck's most complex work was, it never quite reached the insanity of Unquestionable Presence. However, this kind of goes there. It's not quite on that level. It gets there in the next 2 releases, but it's not quite there. But the difference is that this is still rooted in death metal. It's still rooted in whereas Unquestionable Presence suddenly went into mega prog zone, and it went into mega jazz weirdness and all that kind of stuff that, you almost had songs that just they defied explanation. And if you don't know, we did a killer deep dive on Atheist a couple weeks ago, but my brain does not retain information sometimes, and I'm pretty sure it was 92 that Unquestionable Presence came out. Condemned to Obscurity, holy fucking shit, man. That haunting piano intro from Luke, and then it just goes into these crazy pick harmonics, the squeals, the pick slides, gargantuan riffs on this album, man. Just fucking gargantuan. They're just huge. Love that song. Erosion of Sanity, good tune. I like it. It's not one of my favorites on there. But again, like I said, big step up in complexity of the riffs. What do we have here? Oh, for Erosion of Sanity, crazy tempo changes. insane interplay between guitar riffs. Remind me about solos at the end. I have to say one thing about that. Orphans of Sickness. Oh my God. Blah. The guitar chords, the descending riffs in the intros, the pinch squeals that go into these winding corkscrew riffs, the main riffs of the verse, and the vocals by Luke are just fucking. They're just manic at times, but they still sound tuneful. They're crazy and unhinged, but they still sound tuneful. Hideous infirmity, creeping, lurching, massive assault of riffery, crushing. Crushing heads. What do I have? A path beyond premonition, crazy riffs to open. Probably that opening sequence of path beyond premonition is just insane. It's so fucking badass. The vocals are crushing. The drum performance is better as I said throughout this. I still can't put this guy, in my opinion, on the level of some of the drums we're going to hear coming up, but it's good stuff. I mean, it really is. And then I put odors of existence. What do I put here? Spiraling heavy riffs, chug, chug, chugging, pick squeals. That's what would pick squeals, like guitar pick. Let's see. For me, the major issue is the production. And I got to say, the solos on this, there's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of pronounced solos. But I don't know about you guys, but when you listen to this, Jimmy, the solos just don't measure up to the other guitar stuff that's going on. I don't know if you find that, but I do. Maybe it's because
I don't really remember any of the solos really sticking out other than
they're not
there. Yeah.
They don't. They're kind of in the background. They're not very technically adept for what's going on with the rhythm stuff. They're not horrible, don't get me wrong, but they're kind of more rudimentary. And that is kind of what you wouldn't expect, which you did not have that with Atheist. On Atheist, you had insane guitar solos that were incredibly memorable, and they actually made the songs better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Actually, on Atheist, they used a lot of guitar solos, almost like drum fills, to move into different sections. So, yeah, let me see. Is there anything else here? I still feel like the drums are the weak link. I do think he's leveled up a lot, but probably because I'm comparing it to future drum performances that are coming up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and part of the thing there, Jeff, is that, a lot of these drummers, we're still talking about the time where we didn't have like triggers and we didn't have like these really precise drummers.
You didn't have click tracks. You didn't. Most guys didn't play to a click back then.
It's more kind of a loose, which is interesting to me. Like as a drummer, like it just felt like, this guy. Yeah.
Well, good point.
You can't measure this guy up to like anything that would I wonder what he would have done if he would have gone forward. But
where's he even at these days? Who knows? Right. You know what I mean?
But the sheer creativity is what kind of like came out, for at least in the drum department.
You definitely hear suffocation vibes here. There's no doubt, especially the first two albums. You definitely hear that suffo. What's the word I'm looking for? Cavernous sort of feel to everything, that everything's kind of closing in on you, and those guitar riffs kind of feel like almost feels like the guitar riffs are kind of falling in on themselves a lot of the time, like they're just crashing into each other and bouncing off of one another, but that's what makes it sound so cool. Again, the Seagrave art is fucking killer. What else do I have? Oh, what I really said was the guitar riffs on this album are great because they're not all one speed, which is kind of what they were on Considered Dead. The guitar riffs on Considered Dead are all kind of in that same orientation. Like you said, there's a pretty intense level of groove, which is probably the suffocation sort of thing, Yeah, majorly complex, but things are going to get even fucking weirder. Imagine that.
This album reminds me a lot of this.
What's that?
It does.
Who is that?
Sinister.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
especially the guitar tone sounds a lot like
yes.
This.
Yeah, that's
I think that's Dan Seagrave also, isn't it?
Actually, that's Wes Benscotter on that.
Oh.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. I mean, it does kind of have. I think they were still kind of being influenced by a lot of those early bands, Devon. And like you could tell. Like, to me, like the Condemned to Obscurity, that was the track that showed like, okay, this is what they're going to kind of go to, like that weird harmonic kind of, stuff where it wasn't just a riff. It was more of a a guitar. I don't know what you would call it, but they were very slowly like showing what they were going to become, going forward, but still having that influence from all those early records. In my opinion, they did it better than everybody on this one. But
yeah, I would argue it's certainly up there. I'm not the biggest Suffo guy. I don't know him as much as I probably should, especially like the early stuff like Pierce Within and Pierce Within. I will say that hey Ben, what's up? Good to see you, buddy. This guy brought up, Dan. We're going to talk about Dan after this next album. He does make some contributions. I actually talked to Dan about that, and I'll throw that out there in a little bit. But what's that?
Yeah, on your interview with him.
No, I didn't talk to him about that privately. I talked to him one night after a show 6-7 years ago. I talked to him about the whole. I was really into Gorguts 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe. This is probably 20. When did Post Society come out? 2017?
17, I think.
Yeah. I saw them locally here, just in a club right down, not far from where I'm living now, and Vector opened for them, and there was like 400 people here when Vector played, and then when Vector left or were done, like 250 people cleared out. There was maybe like 75 people watching Boy Bot. I was like, what the fuck? Like, that just blew my mind. Anyways, I talked to him about the situation. It was a pretty chaotic thing. I think there was some issues going on at that point in time. And remember, one of the guys committed suicide very shortly after that. So, yes, drums are, it's weird. I'm not a drummer, and I don't really always listen for the drum. Here's my thing about drumming. And this is I'm saying this as a joke, but to me, drummers should be heard and not seen. In other words, I only notice a bad drum performance. I never notice a good drum performance. So when you listen to guys like I have most of my life, like Neil Peart, Mike Portnoy, guys that are, top level drummers, I notice shit when it's not, in my opinion, a good drum performance. But, we talked about the Agalloch drums, and I was not crazy about the Agalloch drums on some of those albums till they got a better drummer in. So I think that's what Logan's giving me shit about there.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was referring to
the
early Agalloch drumming. Yeah.
All right, so after Erosion of Sanity, the band essentially disbands. Luke brings some other guys in. They start to write an album that does not get released until June 23rd, 1998. I don't know if they did a lot of touring. I don't think they did a lot of touring during that 5-year hiatus. I think they did a little bit, but not a lot. I did not look into that, to be honest with you. So all three of the guys left when Roadrunner dropped them, and they brought in, guitarist Steve Hurdle from Purulence. Okay. Also bassist Stefan Clothier. And for this album, they actually used a guy named Patrick Robert on drums. And I don't think he was only on this album, actually. And I don't know that he did any touring, because I don't know if they did any touring for this album. But there is a cool article or a cool interview. If you look this guy up, there's a good interview on might be Pitchfork, where he talks about his time with the band and how he was auditioning.
Oh, really?
And he was basically a jazz guy. He said, I was not really a metal guy, but I ended up playing in a Sepultura cover band. And somebody saw me and said, you should go try out for Gorguts. They're looking for a drummer. And he went to the audition and played a bunch of jazz stuff. And they said, can you play blast beats? And he played blast beats, and they all walked over into a corner, were laughing and giggling, and they're like, you're hired. That was it, just boom. And I'll tell you what,
Rightfully so.
When you listen to this album, you know why. So, all right, so Obscura came out 6/23/98. It was generally mostly written in 93, and a lot of this album was written by Steve Hurdle, not by Luke LeMay. He does have some writing credits, but the bulk of this album's conception, writing, the whole 9 yards was done by Steve Hurdle. Again, it was written mostly by the end of 93 and not released until 1998, mainly because no labels were interested in the recordings. Luke sent them out and just virtually got no answers from a lot of labels, and the labels that did talk to him were like, yeah, we don't know what we can do with this. And there's a reason why. Again, Steve Hurdle wrote most of this album. And Clothier also wrote quite a bit of it too. He was involved in a lot in it, the bass player. And when you listen to this, you know why, because this guy is a killer fucking bass player. So, yeah, I guess we'll just, who wants to show their copy first? I know you don't have it, Devon. So do you have it, Jimmy? Okay. All right, you're muted.
Yeah, this is the repress, because like for the longest time they this was like impossible to find. I don't even know if it was pressed on vinyl for the first release.
It may not have been. I didn't look into that.
What did you say? It was on
it was
Olympic.
It's on Olympic slip disc. Yeah. Oh, I didn't say, actually. My bad.
So Olympic recordings. So they probably didn't even release. Yeah. Okay. So it was on CD.
Okay.
So this is, they didn't actually get it on vinyl until Century Media got
the licensing.
Yeah.
No, 2012 Warren Music did the first LP press.
Oh,
2012. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Which one's yours, Jimmy?
This is the Century Media pressing. I bought this when it came out. It was probably like 2016.
Okay.
Something like that, 2015, 16. After like, I remember like looking for a copy, like even just to find a CD copy would have been like, $100 on Discogs or whatever, just because they just didn't have enough copies of it. But nice pressing. Two double LP. There's liner notes in here. There's
I'm pretty sure I have the original pressing CD. I'd have to pull it out, but
that's cool, because that's
worth some money.
Sought after. Well, and also because they changed the logo from the original pressing. They, on your shirt, you have the logo they had on the original pressing.
Oh, with the rounded.
Yeah, this is the
green,
From Wisdom to Hate pressing logo that they went with going forward from that album.
Nice.
They had a different logo for this.
So dig in on this, Jimmy. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this one. Because I already know Devon's.
I'll show the gatefold real quick. It's kind of cool.
Oh, wow, look at that. That's nice.
Everybody looking all zen.
Yeah.
He's got a really interesting story about the cover art, too. If you go, he explains it in the liner notes. Here.
Yeah, they paid some old man to come in and do it, right?
Yeah,
they paid some homeless.
Well, the first old man they found didn't work out, but look at the liner notes. It's a lot of information.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But I remember, like I said before, for me, Considered Dead, Erosion of Sanity was such a huge record for me, very important, in my early years going forward. Interesting times, because we all remember, or at least I remember, the period in the late 90s when death metal died out, kind of. It didn't die out completely, but it really, really took it was not as exciting as it was like in the early 90s. Like, as soon as I went to college in 1997, like death metal kind of felt like it was, metal in general kind of felt like it was almost kind of dead from all the grunge and the things that were coming out. There was just no excitement about metal bands. And a lot of these Roadrunner bands that I was into, in those days, all kind of died that sort of, I don't want to say they died they died completely, but there was sort of a slow death that felt like until they resurged. So Obscura comes out in 1998, which is when like things started getting exciting again. It didn't really take long. To me, it felt like it was a long time during that period of MTV and grunge rock. And, you think about it, it was only really like 2 or 3 years before you started to see a major resurgence in metal. And Obscura was kind of there. It just kind of, I remember when it came out, I didn't even know that they had anything out. Like, it was just there. And I remember listening to it and just being like, man, I don't know what this is, but I can't, I don't have the frequency to be able to understand what's going on here. And which was interesting for me because I was such a huge fan of the band. And I thought, looking back on it, I just probably didn't pay too much attention to it because I was not really ready for what this is. And it's funny because like people always talk about like all these albums, like things like this, or like if you were to look at like Cynic's Focus being like, ahead of its time, which it was. It's kind of funny when you talk about these records being ahead of their times, but like death metal was still so new that it was like, man, you could have kind of done anything. And I can, if you read the liner notes and you listen to Luc Lemay talk about how they were sort of disillusioned with the sound that they were doing with Erosion of Sanity and those early Roadrunner records and all, the standard sort of death metal template was no longer attractive to them, and they were not going to continue in that vein whatsoever. There was no longer, no more fast picking, D beat kind of style stuff. Like they didn't want any Slayer drumming whatsoever.
Right. That was the big thing, the Slayer reference. Yeah.
So but talking about the album, this took a long time for me to get into and appreciate. And even today, it's interesting because there's no denying that the place and its time when it came out, like that it was, as much as you want to say like death metal still being a new thing, that it was really the complete, like almost antithesis to the way death metal was played. It's not to say that like, if you want to look at it from like a jazz sort of approach, that wasn't really a new thing because, we had our atheists and our cynics and things like that. But it's definitely not jazz in that sense. It's more like, if you were to compare, like maybe take Cynic and put them in the Kind of Blue camp, this would be in the Bitches Brew camp.
That's a really good analogy. Let me read something to you, Jimmy, and see if you agree with this. Two things. And these, I'm stealing these from other people. These are not my thoughts. I got this off Rating Your Music. I did not write down who wrote them down, but they perfectly synopsize this album for me. The first is you cannot get into Obscura, if you are locked into conventional rules of music in your mind. In other words, it's as simple as this, that if you are locked into a certain way of thinking about music, you will not understand this album. It's just as simple. Also, this really almost perfectly nails it. This album is the Trout Mask replica of extreme metal. If you know anything about Captain Beefheart and Trout Mask replica, that pretty much summarizes it, because that album takes all the conventional sort of thoughts that you have on verse, chorus, middle, eight, bridge, so forth and so on, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, verse, chorus, chorus. It takes that and throws that all the way out. So when I saw those, I always go into Rate Your Music and read other people's thoughts on the album to see if it helps me crystallize what I'm thinking about the album and can't put into words. Those two things nailed it. I have my other thoughts here coming up, but I think those are really, really good ways of looking at that. If you go into this album thinking about the conventional rules of death metal, you're just not going to get it. You're going to be like, well, this is fucking horseshit. And I get that. And I do also say, this is not an album you can listen to once or twice and just get immersed in. You really have to fucking let it brew, so to speak. And you have to go back to it. And you have to be open to listening to it with different sort of set of ears than you do with your normal pop music or rock music.
Yeah, and I think, I think that review you just referred to, kind of hit it pretty perfectly. That it's interesting because, like, even like with the Erosion of Sanity, which I hold in such high regard, like they never really found their kind of stride. Even with that album, I feel like that album was sort of still overshadowed and never really got its due until Gorguts like kind of continued. And I think it was important for Luke to really like kind of break the boundary for himself, as an artist, because that's just kind of the type of guy he is. He's a very artistic mind.
Exactly.
Talk about his woodwork and his pursuing as an intellectual and woodworking and things like that. I think this was very important. Otherwise, I don't think he would have continued to play death metal. And
Can I interrupt one other time here,
Yeah,
real quick? The reason I'm going to is, I think we have to kind of give the credit where the credit is due. Luke did not write a lot of this album,
right.
but what I think Luke did do was he facilitated Steve Hurdle's ideas. He bought into it and was like, "Yeah, man, this is where I want to take Gorguts in the direction you want to take Gorguts with this gargantuan sort of change and shift. Nobody else even tried to do something remotely like this at that time,
Yeah.
and it was so different that record labels wouldn't touch it because it was so fucking weird, and it was, and it is still weird. You know, listening to it tonight, I was like, okay, man. Boy, this is fucking weird. But there's something about it that makes me go, man, this is fucking out there and it's creatively different. And that's why I'm interested in digging into it. And by the middle of the album, by the time I got to Clouded, I was like, fucking, hey, this shit is so fucking bizarre that I love it. And I do. I really like this album, you know?
Well, you know, it's, I think, you know, what you're saying about, you know, I mean, Hurdle was instrumental in you know, in bringing this album forward. I think Luke was very good at dictating and orchestrating what he wanted, you know, and like he was able to find musicians that could realize that vision. You know what I mean? Like they don't, I mean, you know, the writing credits, if you look at the writing credits for each of the songs, it's very collaborative. You know, I mean, Hurdle's definitely like pretty big in terms of the songwriting, but you look at the credits, I mean, they all pretty much between him,
Clothier.
Yeah,
Luke,
Clothier,
yeah.
you know, like he has a lot of stuff on here.
He has a lot of credits in it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So it very much was like, you know, he was kind of genius in that he could realize that having the right musicians to like propel it and do something completely different. You know, if you read the liner notes, he really talks about how it was conscious for them to not, you know, follow any kind of standard template when it comes to death metal. And if I think back to like the late 90s, I'm sure there was like some weird stuff going on. Like maybe there was like, I don't know, Death by Omega or I'm sure there's some other bands that were kind of doing some weird shit. I don't know if it was quite out, you know.
I don't think Deathspell came around till
it didn't come around till later.
Yeah, a little bit later.
Yeah. With the band, I know he's like a big fan of them.
Yeah.
But like getting to the music really quickly without going on too long.
Right.
It took me a long time with this. I mean, I definitely like never really. I had to really sit down, and even to this day, like I listened to it like I think 3 times this week. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I always notice when I listen to Obscura is like I come away with it thinking, man, I don't remember a goddamn thing I heard, other than like some of the vibes of the songs.
Yes,
usually stick with me, but like nothing ever like in terms of memorability. Nothing ever sticks with me, and that's a tough thing to get over, you know, because I mean, you kind of want to remember the song,
sure.
Other than maybe like, you know, kind of the first like few, you know, nuggets.
The first song definitely was pretty memorable. Yeah,
I mean, Earthly Love, is that the one that has the violins, or is it? Yeah, that's the one that has the violins. It's kind of has that sort of like you're starting to see that Middle Eastern kind of vibe. The Carnal State, though, I mean, dude, the way that song opens up. I fucking love it. It sounds so ridiculous and insane. Like, dun, 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 you know, fucking killer. And,
right.
Nostalgia is probably my favorite track on here. That's a fully 100% Steve Hurdle on that one. And, you know, from there, it really, really gets into Insanity. Like
Nostalgia has a pretty good groove to it.
Yeah, it does. I mean, like that's one like
that's
that
probably the most. That's probably the most memorable one. Yeah, that one in Obscura itself, because it's got the weird tapping sections and the
that one's memorable, and it's like it's interesting how they do the weird, you know, histrionics, whatever you call it, but then there's like a semblance of a riff in there that gets really really heavy as shit, you know, and it's cool how they figured out how to do that. You talked about Clouded, man, that song is fucking. I mean, just a descent into madness.
Here's what I say: mega insane riffage, vocals of insanity of an insane man. Oh, vocals from an insane asylum. And then here's my final note on it: doom on Adderall and psychedelics. That's what that song reminds me of.
Good way to put it. Yeah,
and that's probably my favorite track, believe it or not. Even though it's like 9 minutes.
Yeah, it's so heavy. It's got a good groove. But like I will say that it's so interesting that like this stuff is it's so extreme. It's so it's pushing it so hard. Yet the concept is more like surrounding like maybe like the concept could have been a Cynic record in a way. You know.
Well,
Like
here's another reference point. I'm going to go wide so we can all get in on this. Here's another reference point, and that would be, I don't know if you guys have ever checked out Pharoah Sanders, the jazz artist. Pharoah Sanders. Yeah, it's free jazz. They call it free jazz. I almost like to liken this to free jazz. It's like free avant-garde metal.
it totally is.
And I'll tell you though, the one thing I noticed with this album is I hadn't listened to this in a long time. And as soon as I put it on, Clouded came to mind, Obscura came to mind, and definitely Nostalgia. Those three songs, I was like, I remember these. As soon as they started playing, I'm like, I remember these. And, you know, for me, this album is, it's kind of, here's what I also said about it. It says, chaos does not destroy, but creates. And that's what this album reminds me of. It's total chaos creating something entirely new that if you give it enough time, man, you start to wrap your head around it, kind of. You don't fully, this is not an album I think that you would ever fully wrap your head around, but you kind of get there. You kind of start to, it starts to coalesce and you start to make some connections and it starts to be understandable. Now, I got a feeling Devon is not going to agree with that, but that's okay. Because, you know, he can have his viewpoint on it. But I will say, again, this is not an album you can listen to once or twice and get. It's just not, it's not possible.
I've listened to it like fucking 100 times and I still don't get it.
Exactly. There you go.
I mean,
but here you go. This is the one other thing I stole. And this was like perfect for me. Sorry, I'm trying to find my note. This guy named, what's his name here? Again, I totally stole this. Shaky Halo wrote this in 2011 when he listened to it, and it summarizes exactly how I feel. At first, my ears were like, huh? Over several weeks and several listens, my ears said, there's something here. All of a sudden, my ears were like, I'll be goddamn. This shit is dope. I don't know if I'd use the word dope. Weirdly, my ears didn't seem to mind the blood that was pouring out of them. That's fucking perfect. That's exactly what it was. And then below he says, this opinion is simply of my ears and does not reflect the rest of my body, especially my ass, which likes music it can shake to. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect summary of this album.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll say a couple other quick things before I let Devon talk, but Patrick Roberts' drum performance on this is fucking
unbelievable.
And that's the other thing is the production on this thing is
killer.
It sounds so good.
Killer.
Like, I mean, thank God it does, because if it didn't have a good production,
it'd be a mess.
It would be a complete mess. You would not be able to understand anything, and like it's so out there that it has to be clear so you can.
It's pristine, man. The production on this is absolutely pristine.
Yeah, it's so good, and I mean, it doesn't rank. I love all the Gorguts stuff. You know, if I'm going to rank it, it's still kind of low.
That's me too.
But it's still there's no denying the influence that this has had on so many bands in the last 20 years. And I usually don't go for this kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of bands that do the Gorguts thing, do like the real, you know, dissonant, crazy kind of shit like this. You know, like you got Ulcerate and things like great bands. Of course, it's usually not my thing.
Right.
But I can totally appreciate, you know, for me, this is an appreciation. This is like not something that you can just like go throw on and like jam out to. It's a real work of art that it requires like a patience and just you know, an attention to, you know, just appreciate what they're doing on here, which is so fucking out there and crazy, and just how they were able to put it together and make it sound so good is really, really kind of mind-blowing. And you know, so it's not a surprise why this is today considered as you know, as influential as it is, which, you know, at the time when it came out, I think it did when it came out. Like, I've got a Metal Maniacs magazine that when this came out, there was an article about it, and they were already like, you know, shitting all over. I mean, just amazed by it, you know. So it did
Rick has a good thought here too, man. I used to spin this album to torture my roommates years ago. How can it be so good but yet be so painful? That's that's a good way to look at it.
I know it is, man. It's very, very. It's one of the most discomforting, pieces of music I've ever heard.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
But for me, real quick, I'll just say, the first half, it's kind of front loaded more than back loaded.
Absolutely, it is. Yep.
But La Vie Prelude on side C is great. But man, I think probably my favorite track is The Cardinal State. I love that song. It's so crazy. But that's first 4 tracks: Obscura, Earthly Love, The Cardinal State, and Nostalgia. Really just kind of put this thing. And then they just devolve into extreme.
Well, I think after Clouded, it starts to kind of it really, to be honest with you, by the time you get through Clouded, see, that's the other thing to mention here. It's 61 minutes long, 60 and some change, and that's to take that in and deal with that for 60 minutes is a struggle. I'm not gonna lie, but if they would have ended it at like Clouded, it would have been a fucking masterpiece of chaos and new sort of way of approaching metal music. Devon, I sent you a video. Do you remember what it said on there? Do you remember the video I sent you? I sent it in your text earlier today about Obscura. Remember that? Pull up your phone real quick and find that and read that off real quick, because this is another way of viewing it. Do you remember?
Let me see.
Somebody did a quick video, like a 1.5 minute video on YouTube, and said, I sent it to Devon because Devon's not as big a fan of this as you and I, Jimmy, and I understand that. But what does it say? Something about Fred Durst? Did you find it?
Hang on, let me find it.
Oh, fuck,
something about Fred Durst?
Yeah, just wait. The guy that did put this, he's like, let's be honest. Obscura is, I think it says, let's be honest. Obscura is just break stuff in 1998 or something like that. That fucking that song Break Stuff.
That's that Limp Bizkit song, right?
Limp Bizkit song, yeah. And it's like, let's be honest. I'll bet any money West Borland was listening to.
So this comment says more people should describe Obscura as exactly what it is, an experimental new metal album.
That's not entirely off center, because there is some what I would call new metal kind of grooves that happen in it, but it's not new metal at all.
No.
It really is its own fucking genre. It's kind of its own thing, and I don't think anybody has ever tried to recreate it. Even Luke hasn't tried to. He's taken a lot from it and kind of coalesced it into what we're going to talk about after this album. Yeah. But he's never gone back to that level of insanity. Maybe out of respect for Steve Hurdle, by the way, who passed away in 2012 following a medical procedure. I think he got sepsis or something happened. Very young guy, only 40, 41 in that range.
Yeah, complications or something with the surgery.
Yeah, I'm going to let you tie it up in a minute here, Devon. Let me just hit a couple quick things here. Earthly Love, like I said, that, the insanity of the vocals on that song are just and I can't figure out who's singing the whole time.
Me neither.
Sometimes it's Luke and sometimes it's Hurdle. Hurdle seems to have that more sort of vibe, and Luke
howl.
is like a howl, like an insane patient from like a mental institution.
I could never tell if that was him or Luke.
I couldn't either, because it kind of sounds like Luke at times too. So nostalgia, like you said, that crazy chugging, that groove is fuck, serious groove to it. Atonal madness on the art of subtle ecstasy. Doom on Adderall and psychedelics is Clouded. I love that. That's probably my favorite song, as I said. And then, of course, Obscura, the crazy, insane drumming. God, the drumming on this fucking album is just, it's another level. It's so out there, man. It's just whatever. It's fucking insane. So, Devon, tell us all about your feelings on this album, sir.
So even though I haven't gotten it yet, this is the album by them I listened to the most before doing this. I listened to it probably a good 5 or 6 times to try to get it, but
wow.
I feel like it's an album they had to make, though, because at this point, death metal had either gotten like super kind of like mid-paced and groovy or boring or like or kind of just generic, and I feel like they had to do this record to get people talking about them again. because I feel like if they would have made like another version of Sanity, they'd be like, oh, it's the late 90s, who cares? But I feel like this album got people to say, oh, Gorguts is still pushing the envelope, so maybe we should check them out again. So definitely an album they need to make, but I need to give them more listens. Like you said, you can't listen to it even like 5, 10, 15 times and expect to get it.
Well, Jimmy said he's listened to 100 and still hasn't gotten it.
Well,
Yeah.
I should say it's not that I didn't get it. It's just like it never really really like sticks. Like in the way that like I don't know what the fuck I just heard, and I don't remember anything from it.
I don't know that this album can stick. I don't know that the music in here can stick, and the reason I say that is there are not a lot of identifiable melodies. It's not a very melodic album. It's atonal. He uses a lot of modal scales like Coltrane on the guitar, which nobody does. He uses minor pentatonic and then uses a lot of chromatic scales. There is I don't even know what tuning it's in. I gather it might be in B. I can't even really tell. It might be in C sharp. It's definitely not E or E flat. And it's possibly not even a standard tuning. I believe it's probably not. I didn't look into that. Andre says the video live of them playing at CBG's is great. I didn't know that was out there. I'll go find it. That's pretty cool.
This is their version of this, though.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because I was listening. There is some sections of songs that remind me of Demolich. Now, when did that come out, Nesbitt? When was that out, though?
93, so the same year as
Okay, same year. Wow. Okay. Wow. That's interesting. That's a very good parallel. Way to go, Devon. Way to go.
And it took me a while to get into this, too, but I actually like this. So.
I love
Wait
that
a minute.
album.
I mean, Obscura didn't come out until 98.
98. 98, yeah.
So this came out the same year as Erosion, though.
They may have actually copped a bit of that into their sound right there for sure.
Well, I wonder because like I was saying, like there were bands doing like weird kind of dissonant stuff, but like I don't remember like at the time when I, was paying attention then, I don't remember ever hearing. I didn't hear about Demolich until years later.
No, I don't think unless you were super into the underground back then that you knew much about Demolich because they didn't have a wide reach. They didn't tour early on. I will say that bands like, in specific, one band I can think of, Imperial Triumphant, seemed to take a little bit of cue from the Obscura book in that the way that now they're more of a black metal band, but you hear a lot of that super dissonant, jazzy, atonal. Like again, what this album did was it took atonal, dissonant, chaotic composition and gave it some form, but the form is still very amorphous. It's not like a standard verse chorus type thing. You just won't hear that in any of these songs.
But there's not a Kenny G solo on this record, though.
No. Yeah.
They should have had that. That would have been
Frederick, what's up, Frederick? Yeah, I know it was not well received. Of course not. Yeah, absolutely, Evan. Absolutely.
I think it wasn't until Blood Incantation, because they always mentioned Demolich in interviews, that people started checking out Demolich again.
Yeah.
Well, who really helped fire that up is Blood Incantation. They've been referencing them for a while, so
that's what he said. Yeah,
and of course, Blood Incantation took a lot of cues from this band that Andre's talking about right there, Time Ghoul, who were very much ahead of their time too. Although Time Ghoul is listenable in comparison to Obscura. I mean, that's the reality of Obscura. It's you absorb it. You don't necessarily listen to it because you're not going to hear Bee Gees like harmonies or Bee Gees like earworms. You're just not going to catch that shit, So, killer album. I really like it a lot. When we rank these at the end, it's going to rank low, but it's not because I don't like it. It's more because I like the others better, and that's really what it comes down to. Yeah. All right, so moving on. We ready to move on from Obscura? Devon, did you get enough in on that? Where'd he go? He disappeared on me.
Well, I think he's still kind of digesting that one, which is still you could digest it, try it forever, and
it may not happen.
I think we covered it. I mean, I think anybody that's watching this would want us to spend a lot of time on that record, and I think we pretty much. I mean, we could talk a lot more about it, but it's. I don't know. It's interesting to see where we're going to go from here. So
I think we've said all we need to say. I mean, you and I both feel fairly strongly because we've sat with that record for quite a long time that it's a very important piece of metal history. It's a very important record, certainly for Gorguts, because in a way it kind of put them back on the tip of everyone's tongue. And then, you know, they don't waste a lot of time, but something major happens. Steve Hurdle leaves the band to form a band called Negativa, which I've never checked out. I probably need to do that. And Luke carries on, and he adds a pretty special guy named Dan Mongrain, a very young guy, Dan Mongrain at that point in time, who was had his own band, Martyr, tech death band Martyr, that was probably had a lot of influence from early Gorguts and from Voivod, obviously. This was recorded in it was Victor Studios again with Pierre Remelade. That's the guy that produced the last one with Luke. It came out in Century Media and Seasons of Mist. And it was at Victor Studios. And again, like we said, Steve left to form Negativa after Obscura's weird failure to sell. The band breaks up temporarily, but then Luke reconvenes it. And they now add Steve McDonald on drums and Dan Mongrain. And it's still Stefan Clothier is still playing bass on this, and really amazing bass on this album. And we're talking about From Wisdom to Hate.
Yeah. This is another Central Media pressing. I think I bought this at the same time that I got the Obscura pressing, but Central Media, this is actually kind of nice because it came with a CD as well, but there's liner notes and, nothing special, black vinyl. But, I mean, for me, I like this one a little bit better than Obscura because I feel like they kind of, you can't really replicate that album. And I think he took that influence of that sort of creativity from that record and kind of went back to trying to, streamline into something that was still death metal and still, but maybe do something that was a little bit more easy to digest. And I think anybody that listens to this can certainly say that. I mean, still maintaining the sound that they got on Obscura. It's got that weird, dissonant kind of riffing style that they do, but it's, bringing Dan Mongrain onto the band was a huge, great choice. And it's interesting with Luke LeMays is he's sort of following the Chuck Schuldiner kind of.
Yeah.
There's a different lineup, it's all going to be Luke LeMay, but it's interesting that he would, pick different musicians. And I think it was a little bit different for Dan than it would have been for Chuck, because I think not Dan, Luke.
Yeah.
I think for Luke, I think it was a little bit more out of, just necessity to be able to find new musicians. Whereas I think Chuck was a little bit more, able to kind of pick and choose what he wanted for what he was going to do.
Well, Chuck, let's be honest. Chuck was a semi-mercurial sort of dude, and he was very temperamental, and he really quickly developed issues with certain band members quickly. And he was also always kind of sniping the best players in the Florida area. And Luke also was doing sort of a similar thing. That was a great point, Jimmy, that he kind of was doing the same thing more or less up in the Montreal area, picking the best players that were out there. I think he was doing it to make the albums the best they could be.
Yeah, I think so. And again, for this, obviously Hurdle, which was a huge part of where they were going, was not in the band anymore. And bringing back Steve McDonald on drums, who was never actually recorded with the band, was still a good choice. But I think, he pretty clearly lays out in the liner notes that they weren't trying to obviously you're not going to try and redo Obscura. It's you have to take what you learn from it and go forward. And anybody that is not familiar with this record or maybe you're a lot more familiar with Dan's work in Voivod lately, which has been really, he's been the reason, in my opinion, that Voivod has been better than they've, ever been, really.
1,000,000%, yeah.
With Dan Mongrain.
Since Piggy.
Yeah, since Piggy. And really the reason why they're as good and relevant as they are today, I should say.
I would say Snake in a way would agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you really. But if you've not checked out Martyr, do not miss that band.
Oh, so good.
I wish he would have been able to continue that band, but specifically Feeding the Abscess and
Killer
Warp Zone. Those
Warp
two
Zone.
are, God,
Yep.
man.
Amazing albums.
And also, interesting tidbit about the band Martyr, the drummer in that band is now the current drummer in Gorguts, or at least if they're going to continue.
Patrice, yeah. And man, is he good. Holy shit, is he good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, going back to this, I mean, I like it a little bit better. In a lot of ways, it could have been like if they wouldn't have gone so crazy with Obscura, this could have like been between Erosion and Obscura, and it maybe would have been a little bit easier to digest. But at the same time, I'm glad they didn't do that. I'm glad they just went all out with that and then kind of brought it back to more of like, this is still technical. It's still kind of the riffing style, but bringing Mongrain, and Mongrain has a lot of writing credits on this.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
does a lot of stuff here. And I mean, for the longest time, I thought McDonald was the drummer on both Obscura and this, but he wasn't. It was obviously the last guy, but the drum performance on this is fantastic. Again, I mean, I think he really shines through. Very similar to what you hear in Obscura. It really just like follows the way that they do the riffs, but very much, in that mindset of being not D-beat like old school death metal. It's blast beats, a lot of fast double bass. And yet at this time, you think about it. I mean, this is around the time when like double bass was starting to really ramp up in death metal, like really get insane. And if Obscura really was coming out in '98. I mean, some of the double bass on that was pretty insane, and the guy wasn't even a double
nuts.
Inverted. I mean, who can? I mean, that's such a. I think there's more catchy stuff on here than Obscura.
Well, I think the word you might be looking for is, at least that I think, is that these songs are far more digestible to your ears.
Absolutely.
You can listen to them, and there are. Whereas on Obscura, we talked about the fact that there were no reference points of normal composition. We're at least here we still have a lot of the dissonance, we still have a lot of atonal playing, but there is a more recognized form to the songs, and they're not strict. They're not, like I said, they're not More Than a Woman from the Bee Gees, or they're not Dancing Queen from ABBA, but they're much more like, okay, oh, I can reference that. Oh, it's going back to that part. So there's some repetition of parts that make it sound more like a regular song as opposed to all out chaotic insanity that you can't follow.
Chaos. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it does.
Real quick, I wanted to mention this because I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this before we move forward and let you finish that. Andre was asking, would you say the band Portal wouldn't exist without Obscura? I don't really hear Obscura in Portal. Yes, they're super atonal. They do a shitload of that fucking tremolo sweep picking, man. I mean, there's no sweep picking on Obscura at all that I hear. And that's all that Portal seems to do. They are either doing the tremolo shit, or they're sweeping these weird 8-string sweeps that almost don't make any sense. I'm probably the wrong guy to talk to about Portal. I like the song Curtain a lot. That's an evil song. But the rest of the shit, Portal just doesn't move me much, man. It just sounds like noise for the most part. And I don't think Obscura is noise. It is, but it isn't, if that makes any sense. It's noise, but it's not. It's experimentation. Portal doesn't sound like experimentation to me. It just sounds like a black hole of
hell,
soupy nothing, or not nothing, soupy sludgy riffs that just don't really make a lot of sense to me. So I don't know. I'm probably the wrong guy. You guys got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know Portal very well. I mean, I've tried to get into them. It's just, I mean, like, as I said, like when it comes to this kind of stuff, I can't really go deep beyond like Gorguts and like, and if I'm going to listen to real dissonant, crazy stuff, I'll go to Gorguts, and that's about as far as I can go, because it's just not really my palette. Like even this stuff is not quite my palette as much as I love Gorguts, and this, this is what I'm going to go to. I mean, like the portal stuff, I think it probably would have existed without Gorguts, but I'm sure that there's a definitely an influence there that with bands like that, because there's a lot of bands like you see nowadays that come out with the Gorguts kind of influence and that are really good. But
Revocation has some Gorgutsian stuff going on.
They're a little more streamlined.
Martyr.
Martyr, but Martyr definitely, Dan definitely took some influence from early Gorguts. There's no doubt about it. Especially Erosion.
King Ord just said, Blast Nord. Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. I mean, Meshuggah, I don't know. I mean, I think Meshuggah kind of was onto their own. Artificial Brain, definitely. Krallis, definitely.
Yeah.
But is that Dustpell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the more current from this out, like after this album, Deathspell's definitely a big influence. And you can hear it in the guitar work, the atonal weird dissonant, you hear that Deathspell took a little bit from, I think Deathspell took from Gorguts based on when did that come out? When was the first?
Well, that's the thing, because I've seen Luke say that he's a huge Deathspell mega fan.
Oh yeah, he is. But I'm wondering when the first Deathspell came out. Do you remember?
2000.
Okay, so.
But they didn't become more avant-garde until after the third album, because the first 3 were definitely more straightforward. Yeah,
definitely. So there's no doubt in my mind that Deathspell was listening to some Obscura at some point. They had to have been, you know. But go ahead, Jimmy. Finish on Wisdom.
Just a couple of quick things. I was just going to say, like the songs Inverted, The Quest for Equilibrium is probably one of my favorites. That one kind of gets like into Morbid Angel territory. It's like, Unearthing the Past, which is a great Mongrain song, and great Mongrain solo one too. When you hear Mongrain do a solo,
that's the best solo on the album.
Yeah, that solo, that one, and Elusive Treasures. I mean, the whole record's great. I mean, it follows suit. It's again, and I like the length of it. It's not too overbearing. There's a lot of music, and this is 8 tracks, kind of right to the point, I feel like, and just a much easier listen, and great record. I love this one. Yeah.
All right, what you got, Devon?
This is almost like a greatest hits of Gorguts sound to me. It's like the perfect mixture of the first 2 with the technicality and weirdness of Obscura, but it seems like they kind of did their albums out of order. Like it should have been Erosion, this, then Obscura, maybe.
Yeah.
Because of like the mixture of the 2 different sounds. But this record I like. This is probably the one that's grown on me the most. The first time it was over my head, but I like this one a lot more now. It's probably my second favorite behind Erosion. But
you don't have a copy of it, Devon?
No, but I agree. It's like chaos, but more control. It's actually musical. And there's actually riffs you remember. You can hear like, oh, it's an actual riff, not just noise. But basically everything else you guys already hit it. So
any tracks you want to talk about on there?
Probably Inverted or Testimonial Ruins. So the first and last track are my favorite.
Yeah, Testimonial Ruins, that was great.
Let me see here. We got a couple comments here. Poor Frederick. Frederick always comes on my deep dives and then bitches and moans about the stuff that he doesn't like about bands. Atheist, the same thing. Come on, Frederick. Come on, man. I get it, though.
Well, you can't please everybody,
Yeah, we like what we like, right? Imperial top tier. Yeah, dude, I'm not an Imperial Triumphant guy.
Yeah, that went over my head.
They're over my head big time. Yeah, duke it out about Portal. Yeah, I think Portal kind of sucks, dude. I'll be honest with you. And I checked them out way back, like on Vexavoid, or maybe even it was what was the one with Glummer Funnel on? I forget the name of it. I think they're more an image and a look and a presentation than anything else. I just find their music very grating, and it just doesn't work for me. But that's cool.
That'd be an experience to see them live, though. I kind of want to.
Psy, Voivod, Death, yeah. I don't know Red Rot, Bloodbath, Mars Volta, Meshuggah, Artificial. But holy shit, you're throwing all kinds of stuff in there. Devon Townsend, Porcupine Tree. We're going to talk about Porcupine Tree in a minute on an upcoming album.
Well, it depends which Bluegrass node, because a lot of Bluegrass nodes pretty melodic.
Yeah, maybe some of their more industrial kind of dissonant stuff might be a little more
like the work that transforms God.
Yeah, definitely that one. Yeah, but that's so industrial.
Ulcerate, that's another one. Good band too.
What's this say? Howling Void album. Already okay. Don't know them. Don't know Sinners for Downfall. Have to check them out. Portal's freaking weird. Yep.
I think Portal's kind of, like you either really into that or not.
Yeah.
I think they're a good band for sure.
I tried. I did. I tried. I just don't get it. Although, like I said, I do like the song Curtain. That song by Portal is downright evil and it's listenable. What do we got here? Oh, Ulcerate. I agree. I like Ulcerate. I don't know about you guys. I do like them. Mm-hmm. And they're definitely influenced by Gorguts, no doubt.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even like Krallis, a lot of Krallis stuff. The guys that he has in the band now. I mean, that's the Krallis guy, Colin Marston.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
All right. Yeah. Anyway,
so we'll jump out of there. I got a few quick thoughts on this. This is my number 2 favorite album. I love this album, and the reason I do, and I think Jimmy, this kind of summarizes what maybe you were trying to say. This is the album that synthesized the angular dissonance of Obscura with death tech riffs that made for listenable songs. And that's my thoughts. That's not anyone else off of Rate Your Music. I put in weirdness. That could also go in there for the riffs, the weirdness, because they're weird riffs, man. They're, as a guitar player, they're fucking bizarre riffs. They're not standard normal riffs, but that's what makes Gorguts very unique. Just like Atheist is unique for the jazz improv and the way the solos kind of interplay with the main riffs of the songs and Kelly's vocals. That's what makes Gorguts unique, is those atonal, dissonant, weird riffs that kind of make sense. They go into your head, your ear holes, and you go, this shouldn't sound really good, but it does. Why does it? And then you have that little mind thing that's going on in your mind, like where you're trying to figure out, why do I like something like this? I shouldn't. It doesn't make any sense. It's not very tuneful, but it is tuneful. That's the weird thing, that your brain makes that connection if you're tuned into this. What else? Production is killer on this album. Man, the production is good on it.
Really good.
Clarity of all instruments and dissonance, vocals. The vocals sound huge on this album. They just sound massive, man. And
this has my favorite vocals from Luke on any of the albums.
Yeah.
This is the album that I think Luke sounds the most like Mike Ockerfeldt. This is the one that I think that I was like, wow, that sounds like fucking Mike Ockerfeldt on maybe Brave Murder Day or something like that. It just really struck me as that. Quick on the songs, Inverted, those bizarre raked atonal pick scrapes over what do I got there? Shit, what the hell am I reading here? You're kidding me. Why can I not write like a human being? All right. They develop into a mix of crazy, Obscura DM riffs that harken back to, I hear, Erosion of Sanity riffs on this a lot too. Behave Through Mythos, crazy drumming. Oh, the drumming on that, on Behavior Through Mythos, is absolutely killer. The vocals are ferocious, grinding, intense angular riffage, pummeling. Yeah. From Wisdom to Hate, crazy, love that song. But the one I really like, the two that I really like are Unearthing the Past, which is the Dan Mongrain song. That's killer. And then The Quest for Equilibrium, which has all the weird synths and the kind of Luke gets to put his college degree into a full effect here and creates a mini sort of string ensemble thing. That's killer. And then when it actually kicks into the fucking super heavy part, man, oh, it's so good. So damn good when it kicks into the riffs. Elusive Treasures, killer opening on that one. Grinds into a deathly deformation, winding into curling riffs that torture my ears. What else do we have? Testimonial Ruins. That one's really killer. Tour de Force from a guitar perspective. Incredible riffs. Dizzying, spiral, drony riffs. Man, I love Testimonial Ruins is killer, man. The fucking riffage on that is insane. And what it really shows is that Luke is an incredible guitar player, man. I mean, he is just an incredible fucking guitarist. He doesn't do a lot of leads, which is kind of interesting because when I saw them, which I'll talk about in a minute, he didn't do any of the leads. Kevin did most of the leads, almost all of them. But Luke was kind of the glue holding everything down with the rhythms, man. It was fucking insane. So what else do we have here real quick? Are we ready to move on, guys?
Yeah.
He's like Hatfield for sure. But yeah, I mean, like, I think this one gets kind of overlooked, and it's a fucking great record.
It's like, absolutely essential. Absolutely.
And anything
essential.
that Mongrain's on is going to be fucking great, in my opinion. But it's just, I mean, like the production, the drumming is great, and I want to. That's what I wanted to say real quick before we move on. I feel like all the former members of Gorguts are condemned to obscurity.
Yeah, that's weird.
Because like when you look at like former members, like they haven't done anything else, or they die.
Well, I was just going to say, unfortunately, in this case with Steve McDonald, he ended up committing suicide very shortly after this. Apparently had a lot of depression issues. I didn't really check to see how old he was, but he couldn't have been that old. I imagine he was probably in his 30s.
Yeah, he's pretty young.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really have a whole lot of production credits. I mean, if you look at any of these guys, like the first
he was 31.
Yeah, 31.
Yeah. I mean, like, even Negativa never really picked up. That last drummer on Obscura, I mean, I guess he's a jazz guy, but I haven't really seen anything that he's on. A lot of these guys, man, just like, except for Mongrain, kind of are condemned to obscurity.
All right, Josh, you saying check out Lovecraft Sextet Misery. H.P. Lovecraft inspired Black and Jazz Doom. I'd probably love that then. And if they are kind of like White Ward, that's definitely a good thing because I definitely dig them. What else we got here? We got Evans here from This Year Makes Me Think Gorguts. I have not checked them out, Logan. Didn't like Portal to a Vow. Yeah, that was the one that came out last year. I like a lot of haunting and weird shit. I gotta admit, I did not check that one out. I'll have to check it out. The new Blue Das Nord is killer. I don't know Ethel Duoth and Red Rot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it said Steve killed himself October 17th, 2002. He hung himself.
Yeah, he was. And that was very short.
Committed suicide after battling depression.
Yeah, very shortly after this album came out, because that
came out
about a year. Came out
March 2001. He killed himself October 2.
We got bands like Berserker, more Dust. You can definitely hear the influence. I'll have to check that out. I never checked them out, man. What else we got? Devon Catalyst put out a phenomenal album, Non-Servium Records. There you go. I don't know Catalyst either. Sorry, I don't know a lot of these bands. You gotta remember, I'm like a poser. So, Mongrain doing okay. Yeah, he's doing really good, man. Fucking Mongrain. And by the way, if you haven't checked it out, I did an interview with Dan Mongrain, and I'm hoping to do a couple upcoming interviews. We'll see. I'm gonna try to put a few irons in the fire, and I'm actually gonna reach out to Luke because I have a story about him on the next album, and I'm gonna reach out to him after we're done with this. Maybe he'll stop in and let me know what's going on with Gorguts because it's been a long time. So anyway, getting back to this, we are now at the Colored Sands album. Now, what we need to understand is that the band did not put out. In fact, after Steve McDonald hung himself in 2002, the band kind of pretty much went into hiatus permanently. Luke joined Negativa because Hurdle had already left and formed Negativa. Luke joined Negativa at that point. After the McDonald killed himself, he disbanded the band. And it was literally Steve Hurdle that said on the 20th anniversary in 2009 of Gorguts that Luke ought to reconvene the band and do a Gorguts album or some type of tribute to the 20th anniversary of the band coming up. So he reconvened the band in somewhere in 2009. and they started recording material. Unfortunately, it took 4 years for the album to actually come out. The album is called Colored Sands. Jimmy, you got that one?
Just on CD, unfortunately.
Okay, that's cool.
I need to get this on vinyl. Do you have a vinyl copy, Devon? Or
No,
he doesn't have it. He didn't even listen to this until not too long ago because I told him he needed it.
I don't know. I should have a vinyl of this, but yeah.
All right, so what Luke then did was he actually went down to New York and met up with Kevin Hufnagel, who was suggested to him by Steve Hurdle. Kevin plays in Dysrhythmia and a whole bunch of other projects. Also, Colin Marston, who plays in Behold the Octopus, I think it is.
Yeah, he's in Krallis. He's in a lot
Krallis.
of stuff. Yeah.
Colin also does mixing and mastering at his studio, which this was a lot of it was recorded at the studio that's called, what the fuck's it called here?
10,000 Caves.
That's it, 10,000 Caves, yeah. This was produced by Luke and Colin, and it came out on 8/16/2013 on Seasons of Mist, right? Yep, Seasons of Mist. And also on this album, Luke got John Longstreth from Origin to play the drums. John does not a member of the band now. The touring member is Patrice Hamlin. Patrice did the drums on the EP that we're going to talk about last. But John Longstreth does the drums on there. Man, holy fucking shit, is it good? I mean, is it Patrick Ryan, or what's his name? Patrick Ryan? Patrick Roberts. Is it that good? I don't know, because that is so bizarre, but it's pretty fucking good. It's up there, man. It's amazing. So this album is based on a concept based on Tibetan culture, encompassing the ancient majesty and modern despair of Tibet, also inspired by the Tibetan sand mandala that Luke had seen. He was really into reading about this. And finally, inspiration for this album came from Opeth, Despel Omega, and Porcupine Tree's The Incident album. We all know about that, right, Jimmy? Well, Devin doesn't, but you and I do. So go ahead, man. Fill me in on this one.
Yeah, he's a big Porcupine Tree fan.
Oh, yeah.
And it was interesting because he was always talking about The Incident, which, I love The Incident, but I know that's not like the favorite. And it's not their best album. But,
definitely not my favorite.
I wonder if he, celebrates the entire catalog, or if he just heard that record. And that was
I believe he may have come into them right around then, but I don't know that for sure based on my interaction with him, which I'll talk about on the next album. But I'm sure he's delved way back into the catalog. I can't imagine he's not that kind of guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the artwork was Martin Lacroix, and that guy used to sing for Cryptopsy. Actually,
oh yeah, that's right.
Never actually recorded with them, but when I saw Cryptopsy back in probably 99 or 2000, they had just released And Then You'll Beg, and Mike, that vocalist, left the band, and Martin Lacroix was singing with them. And it was the Dimmu Borgir tour. They had just released Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia, and it was Dimmu Borgir, Cryptopsy, Christian, and Diabolic, I think it was, in Houston, Texas. And but yeah, Martin Lacroix. Anyway, he was more of a artist than it was like a vocalist. I think he did some stuff with Cryptopsy and a couple other bands in Quebec, but not really prolific as a vocalist, but definitely as an artist. And I mean, who can argue with the fact that's one of the best cover arts?
Love it. So good.
So good. Great name. God, this record is so fucking good. I mean, it's definitely my second favorite of the catalog. And, once again, assembling this amazing lineup of, the guys that he has on this, Kevin and Colin. And, man, John Longstreth was a great choice because obviously that dude wasn't going to leave Origin and
right.
Because Gorguts, they do a tour here and there, but they're not like this massive machine like Origin is.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
and it's also kind of an interesting choice because, like, you know, he could have chosen like something a little bit more. If you listen to Origin, like, I mean, like Longstreth, I mean, he's an amazing drummer, one of the most, you know, one of the fastest, most extreme drummers you'll ever see. That has like some jazz leanings and some different things, but I don't know, man. I guess maybe he was just the perfect choice for that. I mean, there's so many drummers that Luke probably could have drawn from.
You know, I'm thinking right now of one that maybe his star wasn't quite as big at this point in time, but Hannes Grossman would be I bet you if Patrice Hamlin suddenly can't do this, I bet you Hannes Grossman will be the go-to guy.
Great, yeah. I mean, Grossman definitely would have been able to handle it.
Oh,
I mean,
fuck yeah.
But like, I think like with Longstreth, there was a factor of taking like the most, you know, like the fastest guy, but also who's versatile and can.
Yep.
But also extreme, you know,
yep.
extreme drummer.
Yep.
Because this is death metal, and you know, I mean, Hans Grossman has definitely shown that he could do the extreme with that latest Hate Eternal record. But you know, that's one of the wonderful things about this is the production is that the drums sound so natural. Like, and like if you listen to Origin records, they're great, and like the drumming is so great, but there definitely is sort of a quantized kind of effect, you know, with really heavy on the triggers, and you know, whereas this, like, it's so like acoustic sounding on the drums, like even but it's still like you could still hear what he's doing, like, and that's very hard to do, I think. You know, like especially with the double bass on here, like parts where he really goes crazy on the double bass, you could still make out what he's doing, and it doesn't sound triggered, and that's pretty amazing. I think this record, I mean, like, again, like often with some of these later Gorguts records, is like I feel like it's front heavy.
I agree with you on that one. Yep. Again, on this one.
Yeah, the first 4 tracks are, I mean, perfect from start to finish. They're memorable. Like I can remember the songs. Like they, so many moments in them like stick out in my head. There's a lot more focus on melody, I feel like, on this. Which for me is a big deal. What I wanted to hear. An Ocean of Wisdom is probably my favorite track on here. It sounds like an ocean of wisdom. That's what it sounds like. It just goes through all these different moods and colors that they've not really quite done before, I don't think. I mean, like, you know, the previous record, like it was varied, but it was like pretty status quo in terms of like the, you know, the ebbs and flows, the moods of the album, where this really kind of goes in and out, being really extreme and then being really melodic and being really like kind of, you know, stripping it down and taking it back and not like just brute force in your face. And the songwriting choices there, I think, kind of reflect that. I think Luke really has a lot more of the songwriting on here.
Pretty much all of it. He does everything but the Arrow song. What's it called?
Arrows. Yeah, that's
Forgotten Arrows.
That's Colin Marston. Yeah,
that's Colin Marston, and I believe
is Kevin Huffnagel.
Yeah, which one is it?
The guitar player, Kevin Huffnagel.
Yeah, but no, what song is his? I forget.
Absconders, the second to last track. And I think those guys had some writing credits, like, you know, helping him. But for the most part, LeMay wrote most of this. And so,
right.
I think, you know, like we were talking about, like Porcupine Tree, like not like this sounds like anything like that, but I think he found sort of a melodicism that they've never had before that I really like. I mean, that really drew me into this. And it's interesting because, like, you get through those first 4 tracks, which are like perfect from start to finish and really just like memorable and like stick in your head. I think even when I saw them live, which I'll talk about shortly, they play those first 4 tracks. Then there's the Battle of Camdo, which is like the middle, like the
classical piece.
Yeah, which is, it's kind of funny because like it almost like doesn't fit at all in this record.
It doesn't fit at all, but if you know the history of it, which I'll tell you real quick.
Yeah.
He read a book, and it's based on the invasion of Tibet by China in 1950. And so it sounds like an epic battle sort of thing brewing. You know what I mean? When you know that, it kind of makes a little sense. But I agree with you. It doesn't seem to fit. It kind of breaks up the flow of the album a little bit.
It should have been on the beginning.
or at the end.
Well,
one or the other.
I actually think it's well placed because it does break up what's to come. Like, I mean, you get those first 4 tracks, which are great right off the bat, like really stick in your head. Then there's that middle piece, and then this thing devolves into pure chaos. Like, I mean, to me, like the second half of this record is almost like on the level of Obscura in terms of like just the insanity of it.
You know what, dude? I never thought of it, but I think you're right, because the second half of it is the way more abrasive, deathy, crazy sort of stuff. Whereas the first 4 tracks, there's a lot of melody, there's a lot of haunting sort of mellower sections that add like picked harmonics and things like that. A lot of harmonics, a lot of almost synthy, not synth, but not what's the word I'm looking for? There's mellow sections that almost kind of like lull you into, they're progressive. There's progressive sections. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Logan just said it's the perfect middle of the album, the calm before the storm. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's before, like, because after that, dude, it gets fucking nuts again. And like I listened I knew the first half of this so good, like I didn't really have to listen to it prepared for this. I listened to those last 4 tracks like, I don't know, 5 times this week, and I still like come back from those tracks, and it's kind of like Obscura. Like I can't really remember a whole lot other than maybe like some of the sections in Absconders.
Yeah, Absconders is pretty memorable because it's like the epic song, and it gets really groovy at the end and has those repeating motifs. Yeah, but you're right about the other 2 or 3 tracks; they're not as memorable.
Enemies of Compassion is a fucking insane song. I mean, just like, and that's where Longstreth really goes off, like crazy with the double bass and Ember's voice. Those two, like those, I listened to them so many times I still can't remember anything from them. Absconders, Reduced to Silence, a little bit more some memorable stuff, but like it really is an interesting record in that respect. Is that like it's kind of it's got 2 different sort of flavors, but still like the experimental nature of the band with the middle like classical symphonic piece is fucking brilliant, dude. Like I don't know, it's just I don't know how they don't. I just hope Luke has another record in him like this, because this was like what they needed to do to propel the band forward with an amazing lineup. And goddamn, I mean, everything down to the production. It's natural. It's it doesn't have those trends of typical modernized death metal.
You're right.
I mean, it's fucking and it's got that melodic. Like maybe there was like a little bit of melody in the Erosion of Sanity that I was kind of missing. Like, whereas when you go to, Obscura and From Wisdom to Hate, it's a lot more about dissonance and kind of weirdness, but this has a newfound, sort of dabbling in a melodic pasture that really fucking works well. Even like the start of the song Colored Sands, the title track, just with that one little key string that he does, man, and it reverberates and it sounds really nice and beautiful. Wow, I mean, it's a real good mix. I've gone on too long. There you go. Fucking amazing record.
Yeah, this is my favorite of theirs, but I will admit you're right about like the one thing I will say about those last couple of tracks after the Battle of Chamdo, Enemies of Compassion, here's what I wrote, has the most Meshuggah-like vibes to it, except the dissonant sliding chords are super atonal, and Meshuggah doesn't do atonal, they just do that chugging genty thing, more or less, with a couple different strings. But I heard that's the one song I was like, that has a little bit of a Meshuggah type thing to it. Devon, I'll let you wrap this one up. I'll give my thoughts quick on it here. I know because you just listened to it for the first time, a couple days ago, right?
I listened to it a few times this week.
So, for me, I got to see them on this tour. Well, I got to see them on the next tour, but they did a lot of this album. Man, I got to tell you, man, the first song, Le Tuit du Monde, it's just fucking mind bending how incredible that song is, man. You hear epic, mind blowing riffage into spacey, proggy section. The ending is all dreamy and dreamy from a nightmarish sort of point of view. This song is frighteningly awesome. That's what I love. That may be my favorite Gorguts song. It's just this is my first Gorguts album that I bought, although I heard Obscura first way back, like 13 or 14 years before this came out. Well, yeah, 2000, 2001. And I took a flyer on this because I was reading a lot of reviews about it coming out, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to check this band out. Especially when I heard that it was kind of influenced by Opeth, and I saw some write-up where Luke was talking about the incident and all that. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. And man, dude, I threw this in the fucking CD player in the car, and it never came out for like 4 months. It was like, that's all I listened to was this album. Now, I haven't listened to it in a long time. I'm not going to lie. It's been many years since I've spun this regularly, but An Ocean of Wisdom. Let's see, what do I got here? It starts off with that sort of droning riffage. This is more spacious and hypnotic, this song. It goes into that real hypnotic and spacious section where it's just like almost floating, and it reminds me of like an ocean. Until it revisits the insane heavy sections, the dissonant sections. Forgotten Arrows, man, that's a killer tune, man. Oh my god, so much super atonal riffing into a slower dreamy dirge, or dreamy, that's drowning dirge. Luke's vocals are buried deep in the mix on this one, but they come out of the mix like they're coming out of a cave or something like that. It's so cool. Colored Sands. Is that song fucking killer, man? Sinister, creepy intro. Crushingly heavy, monstrous riffs that kick in about 2 minutes into the song. Luke spits the words out with crazy intensity on this one. That's a killer epic. Battle of Chando, like I said, inspired by the Chinese invasion of Tibet in 1950. Luke transcribed as he wrote it on the piano and transcribed it for a string ensemble. That shows you I can play the guitar and I can plunk around on piano. I couldn't begin to write a fucking string ensemble. I have no idea how you even do that because I don't read music. So, let's see what else do I have here. Enemies of Compassion, probably my least favorite song. Oddly, it's almost like too much to take in. Like you guys said, it's just so insane. Absconders, the opening is killer. I love that song. That's kind of the longest epic track, and I really dig it. And I don't really know a lot of Dysrhythmia, although I think Jake sent me a Dysrhythmia CD that I never got around to listening to. But yeah, man, this for me is a 9.5 out of 10, and I only take the half off because it does tail off a little bit towards the end, and I need to maybe pay a little bit more attention to those tracks. And I did feel Battle of Chamdo was weird, but now that you mentioned the way that you were thinking of it, Jimmy, it kind of gives me a little bit of a different perspective on it. So, Devon, what you got on this one?
So I agree. This is honestly kind of like how can I put it? This is almost like two albums in one. Like the first half is the more melodic side, and the second half is the more chaotic side. I think it would have been better if they made two separate EPs and do the first EP, the first 5 songs, and the second EP, the last 4, because it's kind of like jarring. It has something pretty more melodic and then go into like a super crazy stuff on the same album. But I like it better.
Yeah, but the reason that doesn't work so well is because essentially there is a thematic thing that Luke is running through this thing. Absconders was based on a novel that was written about a Tibetan murder of some religious official or something like that. So I get what you're saying, but I think his whole thing was, I've got a narrative running through all these songs. I want to keep them all together.
Mm-hmm.
Just my perspective on what he probably was thinking.
Yeah, I like it better than Obscura, but not as much as From Wisdom to Hate or the EPS to come next. But I get why you guys like it a lot. Just I think they have made better records. But if for some reason they don't ever do another full length, this would definitely not be a bad record to go out on.
I think they're still doing something. I know that Luke wrote something because remember during the pandemic when Metal Injection did that Slay at Home thing where they had all the artists playing. Luke and Dave from Revocation played a new Gorguts song. So that's 2 years ago, though. So we know one thing about Luke, man. He does not work fast. And mainly because he's got another career that's probably a lot more lucrative. His furniture business or whatever he's doing there with woodworking probably makes him a shit ton more money. And
Didn't he build all of his guitars too?
No. His guitars are from the same guy that does Dan Mongrain's guitar. I'll think of it. It's either Monson, which also does the guy. What's his name? Mike Scheidt. Monson, I think they're called Monsons. And it's either that or it's Ciccone, I think they're called, or something like that. I forget the name of it. It's a Canadian guitar maker, but no, Luke didn't make his own guitars. But he does do the furniture thing. And let's be honest with you, the Gorguts has never been a huge touring band. They'll do a couple, small tours, and then they kind of disappear for a long time. So not something that I just don't think for Luke, this is the rock star thing is not for him. And I just don't think it's really that important, but, you got anything more on that, Devin? Any specific tracks you dig on there?
Probably an Ocean of Wisdom.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
and this is another album like Erosion that the artwork matches the music perfectly.
Ah, very good.
Like it looks like that creature would make the music.
The creature?
Like the thing on the cover that's praying.
I think their hands with a rose, like a rosary on them, isn't it? I don't think there's a monster in there. I think it has to do with the Tibetan religion. What are they? What are they? Buddhist, right?
Yeah.
I think actually somebody mentioned that. Maybe Josh Coe said something about that. Yeah, I mean, you said you were going to pick this one up, Devin? Is that what you said, or am I dreaming that?
Yeah, I'm going to pick up this and From Wisdom.
Okay. Good man. I have everything on CD, but I was not going to dig my CDs out because I knew Jimmy probably had everything. So, but I do have everything, and I probably grabbed all that stuff since 2013, so I doubt anything's new. It's probably all reissued stuff. All right, we ready to head on to the final?
Real quick,
yeah.
I'll say just to preface, the next one, I got to see them live. The only time I ever saw them
was on this tour.
Before, yeah, and it was them and Carcass.
I remember that tour.
Yeah, it was the Decibel tour.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like probably I don't remember what year that was, but
15.
And what's
14,
that?
15? 14 or 15.
14 or 15, yeah. And they
I remember that. I almost went.
It was at the Summit Music Hall in Denver, and it was kind of like a co-headlining thing, but Gorguts only got like 5 songs. They did the first 4 tracks from Colored Sands, and then they closed out with Obscura. And and Patrice Hamlin was playing on drums at that point. But they had, Huffnagel and Marston.
Yeah.
And it was, they were just fucking flawless.
Longstress never toured with him. Like you said,
he just did the record.
You pointed out the obvious. He was not going to leave Origin. That was his,
right.
That was just a studio thing for him.
But they found the perfect drummer.
Oh, man.
And we'll get to that. But I will say I went to the merch booth after they played and got the shirt, and Luc Lemay was there. And I always love the guy because he looks like he just rolled out of bed. Like
he does.
He's just got like jean shorts on and a t-shirt, and his hair's all fucked up, and he's just like standing there like a hippie kind of,
All right, so I'm going to tell my story because you kind of led into that. So I saw him on Colored Sands, and as I said to you, Jimmy, before we started, I happened to go out to dinner with my kid, and we sat down in this restaurant. And it was a cool, Appalachian Brewing Company, it's called, in Lititz, Pennsylvania. Great. They do their own microbrews and everything. And so we sit down, and I'm wearing my Gorguts Colored Sand shirt. And this kid walks up. I say kid. He was probably 20, 21. I think he was in college. He walks up, and he's like, dude, fucking Gorguts colored sales. He didn't say fucking, but he's like, Gorguts colored sales. Oh my God. A Gorguts fan. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. They're fucking killer, man. You know, I'm like, you know, cool, man. We're talking metal. And he's like, are you going to see them? I'm like, going to see them where? What do you mean? He's like, well, they're playing in Baltimore, like on Tuesday night. This was like a Saturday, right? So I looked at my kid. I said, guess where we're going on Tuesday night? We're going to see Gorguts, right? This is back when I was healthy, by the way. This was 2016. I think the summer. It was July of 2016. And I hadn't yet started having a lot of my symptoms that I have now. But anyway, if I hadn't met this kid, I never would have known they were playing. So we went down and we saw them in this tiny little place called the Metro Gallery in Baltimore. As I said, the band Exist opened, and they were fucking amazing. Bought their album. But here's the best part of the story. So before the show starts, I go over to the merch booth. I'm looking at it, and I'm the only guy there. Nobody's buying the merch booth. I'm looking. I'm wearing a Porcupine Tree Signifies shirt, which I wore specifically because I thought if I run into Luke, I'm going to talk to him about Porcupine Tree, right? So I'm standing there, and I expect like some band chick, you know, like a wife or a girlfriend that's helping the band out, or a dude, you know, the drum tech, the one roadie they have. I expect him to be manning the booth, right? And Luke comes walking up. And so I get this great idea. I'm like, he's like, oh, hey, how are you doing? I'm like, hey, what's up, man? I said, so, you know, blah, blah, blah. We're looking at shirts, and I get a Pleiades Dust shirt. And I'm like, hey, is Luke here? And he looks at me kind of weird. And I said, because I wore this shirt specifically because I wanted to talk to Luke about Porcupine Tree because I hear he likes him. And he goes, it is me. I am Luke. I'm like, no. Luke LeMay. I want to talk to Luke, the main guy in the band. And he just looks at me like I'm fucking insane. And I'm like, hey, Luke, I know it's you. I was just fucking around, man. He goes, you got me, man. So we got into like a 10-minute conversation, man. He was like so cool. We hung out, you know, for it was probably like 7 minutes. He was the nicest fucking guy I'm serious, man. I met a lot of rock dudes. This guy was the real deal. A sweetheart of a guy, just very appreciative that we were there to see him. Very appreciative that I bought 2 shirts. I bought the Obscura shirt and the Pleiades Dust shirt. Just the coolest fucking guy ever, man. And I mean, yeah, I can't say enough good things about Luke. I think he's probably, you know, in that 7 minutes, I got more out of him than I ever got in my 2 meetings with George Lynch. But that's a whole nother story. We're not going down that road. Sorry, George, if you're watching, you were an asshole to me once, but you were kind of cool the first time. But anyway, so on May 13th, 2016, on Season of Mist, they drop this album, Pleiades Dust. Who has
so real
that?
Quick, what did he say about Porcupine Trees?
Oh, yeah. He's like, oh, I love this band. They're like one of my favorites. That's my French Canadian. He's like, yeah. And I said, what do you think about this album? Signify. Oh, I love this album. So I know he went back in the catalog because he's like, I love everything they do. Steven Wilson, he's a genius. And I'm like, well, you're kind of a genius too. He's like, oh, no, not on that level. I'm like, dude, you are. You really are. Trust me, you are. You know, everybody wants to canonize Steven as like the most brilliant musician on the planet. Yeah, he's great. I love Steven Wilson. He's, you know, I've done 3 fucking deep dives on his material, but he's not Jesus Christ of music. It's just, right. You know, so
Luke LeMay kind of measures up there a little bit.
Oh yeah, man. Luke to me is Luke's a fucking genius, man. Super cool, just an amazing guy, just a sweetheart of a guy. And I'm not gonna lie, when we're done with this, I'm gonna find out if I can contact him when I'm sending him this because I am hopeful he'll look at it, and I would love to talk to Luke about what's going on right now. I would be so totally stoked to do that. Maybe he's not interested, but we'll see. You know,
they don't have an Instagram page, so good luck with that.
Yeah, it's probably hard. I think Facebook's the only place I'll get a hold of Luke, and I know he does go on their Facebook, but you know, who knows, man? He may have. I've heard that they're recording an album, but I've been hearing that for 4 years, so who knows? You know, but all right. So Pleiades Dust comes out. Who's got it? And again, I own all these albums. I just didn't pull anything out.
I used to have the vinyl, but I'm stupid and I sold it.
Yeah, that is kind of dumb. Although I sold all my vinyls, so there you go. Jimmy, oh, real quick, Seasons of Mist, Colin Marston's. It was recorded at his studio, 1,000 Caves. What do we got here? I think that's it. Oh, Patrice Hamlin. This is his first actual recorded material with the band. It's based on this actual EP is based on a story of the House of Wisdom, which was an ancient library in Baghdad from 9 through 13th centuries BC. It was destroyed by the Mongols in 1258 AD, I guess that is. No, BC. I don't know. I can't read my writing there. The lyrics start with fall of Rome in 500 AD, then go on to Baghdad 760 until the Mongols destroy the Library of Wisdom in the 1200s. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little hard to comment on the concept there because it's very heavy kind of stuff. But yeah, I actually pre-ordered this like when it came out on Seasons of Mist. And I mean, the one thing I'll say, I don't know, for me, like, I don't know, this might be my favorite thing they've done so far. I have a hard time like picking between this and Colored Sands. Like Erosion of Sanity will always be my favorite. It just because like you know how it is like when records were there for a certain time for you. Like it's hard for me to dethrone that one. But this one, I mean, and like they call this an EP. I have to feel like I want to just call it a full length because it's not quite long enough, but it's almost long enough to be a full length. And I'll also say that I'm so happy to see Patrice in doing something that like I don't know if he really did anything like after those Martyr records that like really showcased how good of a drummer he is. I loved Longstruth on Colored Sands, but I'm so happy to see Patrice on this thing, and he fucking shines as
he blew me away live.
I mean, he was amazing in Martyr. I mean, he was just fucking insane drummer, dude. Guys, go listen to Feeding the Abscess. I mean, that came out in like fucking 2006 or something like that. But I mean, that guy, I know he's like done some stints, and he's kind of like more of a fill-in kind of touring. I think he's actually playing for Cephalic Carnage now, which is weird. He? Yeah. I think he's like touring with those guys, and
wow.
If you go look it up, and he's doing it like a few different like touring gigs, but good to hear him on a proper release, especially much less a Gorguts release. I think this takes everything from Colored Sands that was good about that record and puts it into this big epic 30-minute like kind of, and I think he talked about like the incident being like his sort of inspiration for doing a big, sort of concept piece.
Yep.
Yeah, but this, like, I think this has the dynamics that I want out of the band. Like when we talk about the first half of Colored Sands, is like a lot of the dynamics, like the melodics, and where the second half is like more chaotic and crazy. I'm happy that they focus more on the melodics, and I think they did that with this. And no doubt, there's a lot of weird, like crazy, death metal shit on here. But it just goes through all these movements, and it truly, like for me, it feels like it really does feel like a symphonic piece, in the sense that it goes through those movements, and like all the movements kind of make sense. There's even that like middle part there where it just gets like kind of ambient.
It's dark ambient
before they bring it back. But there's a lot of it's very thematic. In terms of the
recurring themes.
Well, like what they're doing with the guitars, like they kind of bring back what they're doing in the beginning, but they do it in kind of a different way, and they on the second half, and it gets really heavy. It gets there's some builds, there's just ebbs and flows, just that it's a very dynamic listen, and it's exactly what I would want to hear from the band, as I've already said. And I mean, it's hard to really like dissect this thing because it's so all over the place, and but it's done.
And it's one piece of music that's kind of continuous. So
yeah, but it doesn't feel like it's like contrived. It doesn't feel like it's like we had to like make this thing like this big epic like symphonic thing, and it doesn't really work. It really kind of does. It really ebbs and flows, and it revisits different melodic ideas and different themes. That to me, it's a very like it's like a film soundtrack almost. If there was a
It's got that bits to it, yeah.
Yeah, and the cover art is absolutely amazing.
Super cool.
But
who did that? Who did the art?
I don't even know.
Same guy that did colored?
Let's see. No, it's somebody different.
Is it different? Okay, I always neglect to talk about that sometimes.
It sounds like a Ukrainian or Russian name or something. Is it Big Nick Bielak? I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
It's a Big Nick Bielak.
Okay.
I don't know who he is.
He's done other stuff, that guy. I know he has.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot to unpack here with the lyrics and like all the – and as another cool thing that LeMay does is he does do liner notes, kind of like Niall does in this.
Yep.
Like he, kind of prefaces it, but like he gets real deep into all this really heady literature that, can be like you're going to have to sit down and kind of read it. But this is exactly what I would want from Gorguts, and I hope that they follow suit for the next record because I love it when they get chaotic and crazy, but if they could find a balance, and they found a balance on this, I think,
Well, would you agree with this statement that this album, this EP has a lot of its kernels of origin from the Colored Sands playbook?
I think they took the best things that they learned from the Colored Sands sessions and channeled that into creating this work here. This is a work. It's not, like you can't, you can't really listen to it in tracks. You got to listen to it from front to back.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's not easy to do at all. And it really fucking succeeds at doing that, and like.
Well, and it's the perfect length. It's 33 minutes. It does, or 32 and change. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's kind of right in that pocket. You get a real sort of ebb and flow throughout the album.
Yeah. I do wonder, did it take them, 3 years to just write this, or did it just take like a year when they were ready to do it? And
honestly, I bet you it took them 3 or 4 weeks. I think that Luke had the skeleton for it, and then he sent it out to the guys and said, "Here's what I'm thinking." And that I read this, that he basically said, "Look, this is what I'm thinking. This is the basic demo. You guys do what you think is best, and change whatever you think should be changed to make it work better." And that's kind of how he works. It's a continuous flow of information. Do I think that took 3 years? I find that hard to believe, but maybe I'm wrong. If I get to interview him, I'll ask him that. But,
who knows? But you can definitely say though that this is not easy to pull off, and they pulled it off pretty flawlessly as far as I'm concerned. And I honestly think this is a hard second between this and Colored Sands is my second favorite records.
Wow,
this is just so good, man. I don't know. It's just.
Yeah, where do I have this? I have to look.
I just don't have many bands that I can listen to a 30, 40-minute track. And
Pleiades is 4 for me.
4, so, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll hit our quick rundown at the very end.
Great. Another, they've always had great production for the most part. There's been
absolutely, man.
But they always really nail the production. Colin Marston, the guy, he's got his name on a lot of shit, and LeMay, he did a fucking, great decision by going with Colin, because that guy just knows, not just as a bassist, but as a producer, just knows how to get their sound correct. And man, I can't wait for what's next. I can't believe that's 8 years since that shit.
That's mind blowing, dude. It's been 2016, so we're talking 7 fucking years. That's nuts, man. All right, Devon, give me your thoughts on this one. Nick, I'm going to send you a link. You're going to jump on here for the final few minutes and give us your top 3 or 4 Gorguts albums.
So even though it's like one big track, it's broken up, so it's their version of
Yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't mention that, Jeff.
Say
that's a good point.
It's their
Say it
2112.
again.
It's their 2112 EP.
yeah, that's a good. Actually,
Totally.
that's a very good idea. Yeah. Not bad idea at all. Wow.
So I hope they continue in this direction. So like kind of a lot more melodic. So I like this record. It's also this is like their progressive melodic death record, which I can tell they influenced some of the like more atmospheric death metal bands that came out after them, like Phrenolith,
Oh, for sure.
Sulfur Aeon.
Sulfur Aeon. Yeah.
Oh,
And
big
then-
time. Yeah.
Which
Who's
one is
that?
that?
The Cadaver
Cad-
Fumes.
Oh man, dude,
I haven't
so
heard
much
that yet.
so. Yeah. Oh, Jimmy, you've got to get that one, dude. That is
Really?
fucking amazing. Oh my
Okay,
god,
I'll get
so
on
good.
that.
That album is fucking tits right there, big time.
Too bad the band broke up after they did this record.
Yeah, that's all they did. They did like one other thing, right? That was
Yeah.
it, right?
Here's
yeah.
a great album, Sea of Fuckers.
Yeah, man, that is that. You know what, Devin? God damn, man, I hate when you're right about something. I really fucking hate it, but you nailed it. That is kind of their 2112 in a lot of ways. It even has the same sort of flow to it, which is incredible.
Maverick Fumes. Okay.
Yeah, you got to get that one. Can you still get that anywhere? Like
I bought it on
Bandcamp?
Bandcamp.
Or you got the cassette, but what else? Did they have albums and other stuff or what?
Let me see.
Yeah, Nick is saying they had a collection of demos and EPs was the other thing they did. Yeah,
Everything
I
is
didn't.
sold out on their Bandcamp.
Yeah, I know. I feared that. They're from France, right? I think they're French. Yeah, they're French. Pretty sure. You know what, Jimmy? You could probably find it in a distro somewhere or on eBay. I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, France. They were active from 11 to 21, and the album's from 21.
And actually, the fact that you're going to grab a copy of that, Jimmy, reminds me that Devin needs to go find me a copy of that and buy that for me and send it to me. So get on that, Devin.
I'll try and find it.
Anyway, real quick for my thoughts on it. I don't know. You guys fucking nailed it. Here's what I say. Gorguts goes dark ambient with lots of colored sands, like ambience and progressive weirdness. The Thinker's Slumber, drony intro into crushingly heavy intro choir-like, very Deathspell Omega and Gorguts inverted sounding. Dissonance to the max. Wandering Times picks up with dark guitar figures and EBO. There's a lot of EBO in that section of the album. Weirdness. The solo is really cool. I think that's Kevin Huffnagle. I'm pretty sure it is. Then off to the God damn, man, my pen was running out of ink, so I'm having trouble reading. Off to the the patented leads to Luke screaming his head off. Within these rounded walls is a short little intro into Pearls of Translation, and that one really has the real very melodic colored sands vibe to it. My favorite section is the one that is called Compendium, which is a real drony improv, but very cool, that goes into Stranded. Oh, God damn it. Stranded something on the shores of doubt. Stranded. Oh, God.
So I
I'm
saw
sorry.
another album that reminds me of this. Might be crazy, but hear me out.
Nah, I don't really hear that, dude.
A little,
Not
maybe.
musically,
Yeah, a little
but
bit.
I don't really hear that, but I get what you're saying, I think. But hey, what's the name of that song, Jimmy? Stranded something on the shores of doubt. It's towards the end, next to last track. Stranded something.
Not to take the vinyl out because let's see. Yeah, Stranded Mines on the Shores.
Mines. Okay,
Yeah.
Stranded Mines on the Shores of Doubt. Man, that's the one with the really cool Colin Marston fuzzy bass where it gets all super dark ambient and drifty and all that stuff like that. And then I'm sorry, that's the section before on Compendiums, and then it goes into Stranded Mines. Super dark ambient, spectral parts, space-based synth drone, and then Besieged is the last part, and it's probably my favorite part. It just goes fucking full on deranged. I I love this band. I think Jimmy, you're. Oh, look at that! Nice. Oh, that's so
That
cool,
cover is
dude.
so cool, man.
That is badass. I don't even know how you sit down and start drawing something like that. Way beyond my pay grade of art level. I'm like a
But it kind of
kindergartner.
looks like, like I love, it's got that sort of scholar kind of thing with the book and the pen with the feathered pen. And man.
Yeah, that's fucking killer, man.
Guys are like wizards.
All right, so I'm going to run my 6 albums. And number 1 is Colored. Number 2 is From Wisdom. Number 3 is Erosion. Number 4 is Pleiades. Number 5 is Obscura, and number 6 is Considered. But really, man, there really isn't anything in their catalog that I don't like. Considered and Obscura would not be first grabs for me. It would be one of the other 4. Probably one of the top 3 would be the thing I would go to the most, like Colored or From Wisdom. But, for me, this is a fucking incredible band, a very unique band. Nobody really sounds like them. A lot of people try to imitate them now. Luke is a fucking genius, and he plays with only the best players around. And
so Logan has mentioned a really good band you need to check out, though, Cosmic Putrefaction.
Yeah, the Cosmic Putrefaction is very much like Gorguts. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, I think to a degree, I think Bedsore has a little bit of that band Bedsore. They kind of have a little bit of a Gorguts sort of thing going on, only a little bit more melodic and a little bit more doomy sounding. But yeah, man. So Nick, I sent you the link if you want to hop on real fast. Give us your rundown of the Gorguts catalog. How about you, Devon? What's your rundown?
Yeah. Say Erosion, From Wisdom, Pleiades, Considered, Colored, and then Obscura.
Wow, Colored that low? Boo. I mean, seriously, what the fuck is wrong with you?
You might change your mind after you pick it up and listen to it quite a bit.
I think so. What do you got, Jimmy?
Yeah, Erosion, favorite. Pleiades Dust, Colored Sands, From Wisdom to Hate, Obscura, Considered Dead. And, that's a hard discography to rank. But, man, because every single record is fucking great. What's up, Nick? How you doing, man?
What's up, man?
Hey, man. How you doing?
But fucking amazing discography from an amazing band. And, I hope they come out with something new.
They're really overdue. Like super overdue.
But they're always overdue. I mean, the only 2 times in their career they put out albums sort of like back to back, and that was Erosion from Considered and From Wisdom after Obscura. So I mean, they've had long down times, and we talked about before you came on board that Luke has a lucrative, not to play on words there, but he has. I'm a punster. Yeah, he has a lucrative woodworking business, man, where he probably makes really good livable money. And, for him, the death metal road trip thing for a guy in his early 50s, he's 51, I believe, 51 or 52, isn't really a thing that he's super excited to do all the time.
Yeah, playing weird death metal doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
I did get to see him once on the tour they did with Carcass and Black Dahlia Murder and Noisem. They were killer. They're fucking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one you saw him? Is that the one you saw him on, Jimmy, or no? No, you saw him on the Carcass.
I think they did. I don't know if they did the same set list for you, Nick, but they did like the first 4 tracks from Colored Sands, and then they closed with Obscura.
Yep.
That was it. It was like a short set, unfortunately. But
I got lucky.
I got lucky.
I got lucky when I saw them. They were headliner with Exist opening down in Baltimore, and they did. I want to say they did 9 tracks. I think they did 9 songs. I'd have to maybe while you guys talk a minute, I'll jump over and see if I can find that set list. But Nick, if you had to rank these, give me first give me your thoughts on Gorguts, and then give me a ranking if you could.
Gorguts is just an awesome band, and I like the fact that if you catch them at different points in their career, you get very different sounds. Like I'm definitely more of a fan of the older stuff. Like I just like the old school death metal sound, even though I think Considered Dead is like I mean, technically Canadian Leprosy, but Leprosy is an awesome fucking album. So of course, I love that. But like some of the later stuff is definitely more challenging to get into. Like I'll put this out there. I'm still not a fan of Obscura. I own it. I have gone back and listened to it multiple times, and it was like, man, one of these days it's not gonna sound like a fucking chaotic fucking maelstrom of just insane guitar playing and weird fucking song structure. I haven't hit that point yet, so that one's still kind of far on my list. And oh god, was it Pleiades Dust? I always screw up that name. That one I like, but it takes a lot for me to sit down and listen to one super long track like that. So it is still a lot to absorb. So that one would still be like lower, even though I really like it, just in terms of how lavish it is. Like it's still technical, but I don't know, like it's just kind of insane. Like the song structure, the ebb and flow of it. It's a wild fucking listen. But I mean, probably next up would be Wisdom to Hate. I just got my top 4 here. But I dig this album. Like this one, they still were techie, a little bit of carryover from Obscura, but not like the batshit insane stuff. Like this still had hooks on it, still had insane playing that was sort of next level at the time, I would say. Like this definitely pushed like tech death a bit. And,
for sure.
Yeah, dude, it's just a gnarly fucking album. This is like the old school, like Century Media Olympic version. Yeah, Olympic Records was pretty cool. It was short-lived. And then, I mean, Colored Sands is just fucking awesome. I love this album. I'm not like, like Dissonance, I like used like sparingly, but I think they just use it the right way in here because there's just this cool, like foreboding atmosphere to it, but you can kind of get lost in it. It's kind of trippy in a way.
Yeah.
And, trippy isn't something I usually use to describe like technical death metal. Like it's still definitely that, but yeah, just the vibe of this album is just really fucking cool. The title track's fucking badass.
Title track and like To It, man, are just amazing.
Yeah, dude, it's just a wild listen and hell of a comeback album for them too, because they've been gone for quite a while at that point.
Well, at that point they were gone 3 years, which is kind of a short stint for them.
Yeah.
Now they're gone almost 7. Right now it's been
good point. All right,
still
6
long time.
Yeah,
and this is both of them. Like
I have that too.
And the Erosion of Sanity, but I still have one of the Metal Mind reissues of Erosion.
We got that same one. Yeah,
this one's my favorite. Like I think
that double one, the double CD one, does it have bonus tracks, or am I dreaming that on the end?
No
demos. No,
nope.
Okay,
just
I
the
thought
album.
there were demos on there. Okay, I have that same one too. Yeah.
Good. I like Consider Dead would be like maybe my number 2. Like I don't know, this would be kind of a tough one to rank. Like I'd really need to go back and just dive into them. But Erosion of Sanity has always been my big just go-to album. Like this is. It almost works as kind of a bridge between like old school death metal, like that old kind of like thrashier formula of death metal, and it started getting a little bit more technical to the point where you really noticed it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I think this is like, I don't know, maybe one of the most important albums in their discography because this was the bridge. And you kind of got like the more technical, people like, oh, I like that. It's a little bit flashier playing. There's some unorthodox song structure in there, but at the same time, you got riffs and just riffs for fucking days on this. Like this album's a fucking beast. So yeah, this one's always been kind of my go-to one. Like I popped this one in probably more than any of the others. But Consider Dead, it's awesome. It's Canadian Leprosy.
When the songs on Erosion are really memorable, like like they stick in your head,
Well, you missed
unique hooks.
Yeah,
you kind of missed. Obviously, you didn't see the earlier part of our show, but we all praised Consider Dead a lot. My only major complaint about was it does get pretty samey. A lot of the riffs are fairly the same as you get further into the album, but which you don't have that on Erosion. Erosion, there's a lot of singular sounding songs that don't sound like the next song.
That's why that one jumps out of me more. But again, I like that that bridge between that old school death metal, very riffy style, and then this more techie, like not quite avant-garde yet, but like it's kind of getting there. Like there's like some just different ideas that were spliced in and they worked.
Yep.
Consider Dead, I like it. It is kind of formulaic, old school death metal, but you know, if you love albums like Leprosy or fucking Cause of Death and shit like that, like
Cause of Death for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna resonate with you. It has all of those same elements, and I love those early album art. You know, the early album art too.
Yeah, we talked about that. That's one of our favorite album covers from them. So, hey, real quick on the set list I saw, it was Letuit and Ocean. They did the entire Pleiades Dust, the entire half hour of it. Forgotten Arrows, Inverted, Covered Sand. I'm sorry, Carnal State, Obscura, and they did Orphans of Sickness as the closer, man, and it was fucking rad, man. It was fucking rad, dude. It was July and there was no air on in this place. If it was, I didn't feel it, and it was fucking unbelievable, dude. It was like my son and I got along the window and we got up and elevated so we could see over the crowd, and man, I mean there was some serious fucking moshing going on of like. There might have been 300 people in this place, 250, something like that. And, man, it was intense. One of the better shows I've gone to. Total pros. Patrice Hamlin was just mind-fucking-bendingly good. And I talked to Kevin after the show. I talked to Patrice briefly. I don't think I talked to Colin. I think he was talking to somebody when I went to say something to him. He was gone. But talked to Max Phelps after Exist show. You know, had never heard of them, and I was mind blown by them. They were absolutely insanely good live. Then I learned afterwards, I'm like, wait, that's the fucking dude that did Death to All. You're kidding me. So yeah, so that was definitely a high point going to see them in 16.
Yeah, you're lucky to have seen that, man, because the one I saw, it was short, man. It was like 5 songs. Yeah.
We got there. Noisem came on, but I mean they were like kind of a thrashy death grind band, so they bullet trained their fucking set and hammered their way through it. And Gorguts comes on, and like I swear, like they didn't really say anything, just started going into it, and like dude, it was fucking wild. And then you know, by the time they got down to Obscura, I was like, fuck, I know this song. I'm still not a big fan, but even my brother-in-law was like, dude, I don't even know what they're doing. It's like, me either. Like it's. I really wish I got that album, but I still don't. Like,
well, you know, we talked
record.
about that. Yeah, we talked about that at length, and I think Devon's more in your camp. Jimmy and I kind of came to the conclusion I may actually be a little further along the curve than Jimmy even, and I don't have as many listens in as Jimmy. But there's something about that album that, Jimmy, you said it best, man. That it's kind of like if. I forget which album you likened to Kind of Blue. Did you say it was Colored Sands?
Bitches Brew.
No, but you likened one album to Kind of Blue, and then you said this is the Obscura is more like Bitches Brew.
Yeah, it was Colored Sands was like.
Colored Sands was like right, okay.
It was like Kind of Blue, which is not a good comparison, but
probably not a great comparison.
You put it into the aspect of the Obscura. Obscura is like Bitches Brew. It's just complete.
It's so out there. It's so experimental, so avant, so out there. I gotta be honest with you. When I put it on, I didn't, and I haven't listened to it in a long time. When I put it on, I was like, man, I don't hate this, and I want to. I should want to take this off, but I don't. It's like I want to hear more to see why it's so confusing to me.
I'm generally left with just I want to get this, but it doesn't gel with me. Like I don't know. Like I listen to a lot of insanely like technical music and shit like that.
Yeah, you do.
But generally, like at least the techie bands that I like, they come back to like a hook every now and then. Then they'll go back to dazzling you with like weird time signatures and like strange melodies that you don't think would necessarily work. This kind of forgoes like the hooks just to like let's push the sonic limits and I don't know, see if we can just break someone's brain. Yeah, there you go. That is tech death fucking like royalty pretty much. And I would say was it Sepulgate? No, Omnivium. Omnivium I think is excellent too. Yep. Killer album.
I don't know Obscura. I've never checked them out. I know That's with Christian Munzer, right? Yeah,
Yep.
I know. You know, obviously I know Christian because he plays an Alkaloid, and I love fucking Alkaloid. So I know Obscura. I've just never really
And he
spent a
plays
lot
in
of time with it.
Falcandra.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. That's right. Yep. And I like that.
Great
You probably
I mean,
dig
it's like, yeah, it's like necrophagist, you know, late era death kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great.
A
I think
little bit more melody. I mean, here lately, like that last one, I thought was really fucking good.
yeah, real
Damn
good. Omnivium was good too.
Yeah, I love that album.
I think you know, Gorguts Obscura, it's kind of one of those records that, like, you know, you'll never like really want to listen to it unless you want to like go and to me it's like sort of like a time capsule. Like it's you know, a place and time that, like, you know, it was an experimentation that like you go back to and like you kind of observe it as like a piece of art, you know, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It never does. Like, I've listened to it so many times and I still, like, I was telling them earlier in the stream, like every time I listen to it, I think it back and I'm like, I can't remember a goddamn thing I just heard. You know, like there's nothing I remember. I mean,
Yeah. I
I do
remember like being confused.
yeah.
I must be weird. I don't remember much, but I do remember Clouded, and I do remember Obscure and parts of Nostalgia.
Yeah,
so.
the first like 3 tracks I kind of remember.
Yeah.
But
you're right. But
yeah.
again, it goes back to what we said, Jimmy. It's 60 minutes of sonic assault on your brain and your ears, and it's a tough one to get your head around, man. And I get that. You know, it's weird. When we're done with this, I'm gonna actually listen to it again tomorrow to just kind of like let it soak in. But I found tonight when I put it on, I didn't hate it like I thought I might, and I didn't. That doesn't necessarily mean I get it. Just because I didn't hate it doesn't mean I get it. It just means that I was not like, oh God, I got to turn this off, or worse, I hit the skip button and jump to the next track. That's usually the sign that something is not working for me if I start hitting the skip button. And I didn't do that. So, you know,
I mean, like, the important thing to know about Obscura is to understand the history of it and like
exactly
where its place is, like in
when
time.
it came out.
You know, like in '98, like when death metal was kind of like dead and it was kind of like starting to come back, like it was a complete antithesis of anything that was happening.
Well, yeah, what was happening in '98? That was Pantera.
Well, I mean, like, you know.
Yeah, Pantera. Well, I mean, the new metal thing was really
new metal thing. Yeah, you had all the new metal bands. You had Korn.
Well, you started to see like some bands starting to come back, but it was definitely a lull, like in the scene, you know. But like it does have like there's a historical significance on what they were trying to accomplish and saying that we want to be completely, you know, the opposite of what any kind of trend there is with death metal, because death metal blew up really quickly and there was a certain template to what death metal was in those days.
Yeah,
you know?
good point.
So,
yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they definitely put themselves in a crazy dissonant island.
Yeah, so
disturbing.
You know, let's just say it was pretty well completed, written by '94. Yeah, actually by the end of '93 it was done. And again, we got to give credit to the fact that it was primarily Steve Hurdle that wrote a lot of the material. It was kind of his brainchild. And Luke, to his credit, the one thing I really like about Luke is, you know, you could almost say like Luke is kind of like a Steven Wilson or a Chuck Schuldiner or help me out here. What bands have like one guy that does all the primary stuff?
Peter Tagdren.
Megadeth. Yeah, that's a good point. What's that?
Peter Tagdren. Hypocrisy.
Right, Hypocrisy. So, you know, there are those guys that are the driving force of the band. They're booking the tours. They're getting the record contract. They're dealing with the record. Luke is that guy. But the one thing that is really interesting about Luke is that he's always been very collaborative on the songwriting end of things. He's allowed the other members to really immerse themselves in what Gorguts becomes with each album. And I think that's an important thing to say. Like, for example, Steven Wilson, for most of Porcupine Tree's albums, didn't really solicit or take many other writing submissions. Now, this new album, it's all collaborative and it's all co-writes, which it never was like that before, right? Yes, the guys put their performances on, but it was always Steven writing them and demoing all the music. That's Luke didn't. I don't think Luke did that so much.
You can even say that Chuck was never that way. I mean, Chuck was always the or the Mustaine kind of thing. I mean, like
Yeah.
the leader. I mean, like, and I also always found, and we didn't talk about this, Jeff, but that they kept the name Gorguts, right? Because like, if you look at a record like Colored Sands, this album that has this amazing like crazy Tibetan Buddhism kind of thing by a band called Gorguts is kind of crazy, right? I mean,
yeah.
they never. He was like, well, I'm just gonna keep that name. Fuck. I mean, I don't know if he ever really explained why. It's a fucking great name. I mean, I'm glad he did.
It is a great name. It's so simplistic, but yet it works so well. And it was a friend of a friend that kind of recommended that. I saw the blurb about it, and I can't remember who it was that came up with it. But yeah, man. I mean, this, we'll tie it all up here, and then we'll go offline and we can talk a little bit. But this is a really fucking amazing band. And yes, it's had different incarnations, and Luke has always been the centerpiece of it. I do kind of think that maybe they're at their strongest right now with Colin and Kevin and Patrice in the band. I really do. Patrice rivals, in my opinion, Steve McDonald, who was a fucking amazing drummer. He certainly is right there in line with Longstreth. And the guitar players, Kevin Huffnagel's no slouch, and I think it's a fucking incredible band. And like you, Jimmy, I hope something's coming soon. Man, it just feels like it's been way too long. Again.
Yeah.
So, any other parting thoughts here, Devon? You got a parting thought?
No.
No.
Did you tell him that you're supposed to buy him anything?
I did earlier. I wanted him to buy me that Cadaveric Fumes album.
Oh,
I don't even care if
one?
it's a lot of money. That one right there. That's the one I want.
The one?
Yep.
You should probably get him to buy you this too, because it's also really good.
Yeah,
No,
that one too. Please.
No,
Thank
shut up,
you.
Nick.
What is that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go look for the
compilation of the Forsaken Triptych. This is
Cadaveric Fumes
2012 2016.
Yeah, that's like demos and other stuff. Yeah,
demos,
Get on
EPs.
that. I haven't heard the band.
Jimmy, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Trust me,
you'll
fucking love it.
I'm gonna get on that definitely tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just
And what was the other
really
one?
just awesome death metal. Lots of melody, atmosphere. Like it's just cleverly written stuff.
Oh, the other one. What was the other one that you said, Devin? The one Cosmic Putrefaction?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's definitely in there. I also think I don't think they're like Gorguts, but I think you'd like this one a lot, Jimmy. Bedsore, man. That album is fucking amazing too.
I love
dude.
Bedsore. I've got
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, great band.
What's it called? Hypnagogia? Hypnagogia?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that album's awesome. Dude,
Fucking
did you
amazing.
check out that
Hallucinations? Yeah.
the split between them and Mortal Incarnation?
I've got that. I haven't listened to it yet. Yeah.
Oh my god, dude! It's an intense. I mean, it's two like 15-minute tracks essentially.
Man, that's a great band. I would also tell you guys, and anybody, I don't know, like I'm not really a big fan of Krallis. Like I think they're a great band. Like I've always thought they were a great band, but just not my thing. Like they're always been kind of like a Gorguts thing, but man, their new stuff is fucking really good. It's very.
I gotta check them out.
Like, I haven't checked out anything new by them in a while.
Check out Crystalline Exhaustion. That's the one that came out earlier in the year. That one, and then they released another one, Psychagog.
It's super proggy, isn't it? It's pretty proggy, right?
I mean, like it. They've always been a weird, like crazy Gorguts meets like black metal, but the new ones, like I don't know, there's just like a melodic kind of thing going on that, like, and a feeling to it that's. I don't know. For me, like I really, really dug it, and like where I didn't really dig the band before. So I mean, if you like that kind of stuff, you already know Krallis, because I know a lot of huge Krallis fans. I could never, but the new one, man, is really good stuff. Highly recommend.
I'm gonna check that out. I think you recommended that to me a little while back, to me, like maybe 6-8 months ago, and I checked it out and I was kind of blown away. Yeah. Probably, yeah. Any parting thoughts on Gorguts from you guys?
Erosion of Sanity rules.
It does. It's a great album.
Yep.
Great album. So I want to thank Jimmy for being on. You said you're retiring, kind of semi-retiring for the next couple of weeks from Deep Dives, right? sort of, kind of.
Yeah. I just got a lot going on at home. I gotta go to New Orleans for a wedding this weekend, and then there's Thanksgiving, and then there's my parents just moved up to Colorado. They just bought a new house like last week, so they're just moving in. So yeah, it's a lot of crazy, stuff going on.
Yeah, because we're doing Emperor and like.
I would totally do that with you guys if I could. Yeah, I mean, because that's one of my favorite bands. But
well, we'll put an empty window up for you and say there's
that's
Jimmy's
all good.
window right
I'll
there.
look forward to watch it.
Like I said, we got a bunch more coming up here. Hopefully, if I can hang in there. I think if you want to see what they are, watch the beginning of the stream. Devon, thanks for this. Like I said, I thought you came up with this, but I guess I did in the end, didn't I? I think we locked in on this one. I'll see you next weekend for Emperor, hopefully then. And I think Nick, thanks for jumping on at the last minute here. Hang on, everybody, hang on after I end the stream, and we'll chat for a little bit quick. I know Jimmy, you wanted to hit me with a couple of things. You said, remember, you said you wanted to talk to me about a couple of things. So, I think that's it. Great stream. Got it in roughly 3 hours, and we really tore this one apart really, really well. And hopefully people, and we had actually 20 people, I think, at one point. So that's pretty fucking cool. And especially for a weeknight. Yeah. And thanks to everybody that popped by. Rick, good to see you, man. I'm glad you didn't disappear because I was worried about you, man. I do need that file, though, so I can get people to do other thumbs other than just you. If I had a laptop, guys, I would do my own fucking thumbs, I swear. But I don't
Bullshit.
have a laptop. No, dude, fuck off. I do not have the ability to get a fucking laptop right now. And I would do it if I had a laptop. Do you think I'm fucking retarded or something? Like that I can't do stuff like that? No.
Don't answer that. Don't.
He's
a good boy, that Devon. He didn't answer that question.
Yeah. Who came up with that funny as fuck concept tonight?
Well, I'm the one who made it, so kiss my ass.
Yeah, you did make it. Although the first venture into it was not successful. We won't go there, but anyways. All right. So, guys, thanks a million for doing this. And peace out to everybody out there in the YouTubeosphere. All right. Later.